Yeah.
Okay.
600 is better.
4,600?
Yeah, that's real close to the big.
It's my
All right. On to the races.
No, but yes.
Yeah, right. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City Commission meeting for the City of Winter Springs of Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. Christian, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Kevin McCann.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Cade Resnick.
Present.
Commissioner Paul Diaz.
Present.
Commissioner Victoria Bruce.
Present.
Commissioner Sarah Baker.
Present.
Commissioner Mark Caruso.
Here.
City Manager Kevin Sweet.
Present.
City Attorney Anthony A. Garganese.
Here.
Great. And our good friend Bob Melhorn will lead us in an invocation to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could all stand.
Good evening, everybody. Let's pray. Holy Spirit, you have dominion over all the earth, including this beautiful spot of creation that we call Winter Spring. And we are mindful that you have taught us that from those to whom much has been given, of them much will be required. So teach us our responsibilities even as we enjoy the freedom of this great land and all the blessings of being in this lovely town. We ask your blessing this evening upon our mayor, our commissioners, our city manager, our city attorney, our city clerk, upon all who work for Winter Springs. We ask your protection for our police chief and for our police officers. And we would ask as well your blessing upon everyone who makes Winter Springs their home. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so is it safe to assume no agenda changes? Right? Okay. So if I can, with the commission's approval, I'd like to maybe lay out a couple of kind of rules here. We usually go straight into public input. What we have, and we've got lots and lots of stacks of these blue public input forms, and I'll kind of read through some rules, but the first two items talking about TLBD, or the Tuscaloosa assessment, is considered a public hearing. In other words, we'll take public comment when we get there. We're going to have a discussion. We'll talk about it. We'll get a presentation by our finance director. We'll talk about it. Before there's a vote, we'll roll into public input about that specific and only that specific topic. Then we'll talk about the Oak Forest assessment, or the cap. We'll talk about that. We'll have a discussion. We'll hear from city staff again. Then we'll open that up, and that's your time to talk and comment about Oak Forest. Now, this is a legal thing. The Tuscaloosa Phase 3, the Hawks Reserve, is a regular agenda item because we're not making any changes. We're not changing the cap. We're not changing the assessment in any way. So that will not have its own public input. So we're going to do one public input now. This is a time to address the commission on any topic that you'd like, with the exception of Tuscaloosa or Oak Forest. You will talk about that at that time. So I'm going to read. So anyone who wishes to speak during public input, and these rules will hold on both, right, all these times, who wishes to speak during public input on any agenda item or subject matter will need to fill out a blue public input form. Individuals will limit their comments to 3 minutes, and representatives of groups or homeowners associations shall limit their comments to 5 minutes unless otherwise determined by the city commission. It is the rule of the commission that you must state your name and whether or not you are a resident of Winter Springs. Okay? So for this first public input that is not specifically about Oak Forest or Tuscaloosa, is there anyone that would like to be heard Sir, we'll take you first in the blue shirt. I will remind you, this is not a time for questions. It's not a back and forth. This is your opportunity to be heard, put on the record, but we won't be going back and forth with question and answers. Okay? Thanks.
Hi, my name is John Sunman. I live at 991 Sleeping Rock Court in Hawks Reserve. I filled out a blue form, but I guess this is my opportunity to speak. And I'm calling about the 2013 assessment on the wall. Why we're a smaller community than Oak Forest and other ones, we've had no maintenance on our wall for the last 12 years after the initial capital improvements. There's been no landscaping other than removing dead plants. And irrigation water, which we're being charged a total of, for landscaping, irrigation, and wall maintenance, we were charged a total of $54,000, but we've seen nothing. We've had $36,000 of administration fees for administering that. My wife has asked people, somebody that was supposed to be taking care of it, he says, "Oh, I'll have to talk to finance." That was about a year and a half ago. Other neighbors have asked, we're not getting any response. So that's the problem I have with that. And if the other beautification is being handled like that, I have severe concerns about that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and so we have you, sir. So is there anyone else not discussing TLBD or Mr. Phillips?
Mr. Phillips, Jesse Phillips, to be exact, 1124 Duncan Drive. And so I guess my comment during this public comment, which is not about the TLBD, is that I completely disagree with the fact that you're not allowing us to speak during this time. We filled out the blue forms, and in your agenda, you have a time for public input, which is our chance as the residents of Winter Springs to speak. I would encourage the commission to overrule the mayor on this. He doesn't get to choose how much we can speak. When according to our rules, we have public input, we can speak during that time. We can then come back up again and speak during the public hearings. At any point that public input is allowed, we can speak on that. All right, so that's my objection. I'm here to speak on behalf of the 700 people who signed a petition on this matter that I'm not being allowed to speak on. That's why I'm here to speak. I'm not here to speak for anyone other than myself and the 700 people who are being denied the opportunity right now to have their voice heard at a time when your charter requires that you allow our voices to be heard. You guys can talk all you want ad nauseum about these things, and you do it at every meeting. And now you're telling us as the residents who are about to have our taxes doubled that we're not allowed to speak? That's my only comment, Mr. Mayor.
Point of order.
Madam?
Point of order.
Sure.
Will the parliamentarian rule on the request? Is it okay to limit speech in the at this time?
My understanding what the mayor was trying to get at is that the assessment hearings for TLBD and Oak Forest have their own separate public hearing. Public input is for any other matter, and the Hawks Reserve wall assessment, because there's no specific public hearing for Hawks Reserve.
Now, as a point of clarification, if one wanted to comment on one of the other items, why wouldn't they still be able to make that comment during the public? They don't necessarily have to stay for the second set of comments. Why would they be allowed to speak in any of the comments freely? Why, like, what rule lets us limit that? Out of curiosity.
I believe the rule says when there's a specific public hearing for an item, then the public hearing is held when the item is taken up by the commission. But if somebody couldn't stay for the public hearing and wanted to speak under the public input, then I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do that.
So they'd still have the opportunity. They would not be restricted from speaking during.
I don't know
this
why it
session.
would. If they couldn't stay for the actual public hearing, I mean, that we have a public input section of the agenda. So they can make their comments and leave.
And it's in section 2-28H of the city code. Public comment is included on every city commission agenda under the following conditions. Number 1 lists the general public input, and then which is exactly what we write on the agenda. Everyone has 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And then it says, except the following items. D, public hearing items where public comments are taken elsewhere on the agenda when the item is presented. So that's the rule that I actually cited to the mayor prior to this meeting.
Correct.
No, this is based on ordinance and history, long-standing history. There's also, there's far more than 20 blue forms filled out, just so that everyone is equally heard and we're moving along efficiently. I appreciate your patience with that. Madam, your name
Good
and your
evening.
resident. Thanks.
So I'm a woman. My name is Lachin, and this is my first time ever in America. And I missed the part. When was the time for asking questions? Because somebody told I'm sorry. I apologize because my English is very, very weak. So when was the time when we asked the questions? Yeah, somebody
but you won't get
told
an
that
answer.
we cannot ask
Yeah.
questions, right?
You can ask questions, but you might
Yeah.
not get
Never
a
answer
response
it.
right now.
Okay, so who is the homeowner? And who can give the definition of ownership? If we are homeowners, we are getting in contract with you guys, and we are doing that willingly. And what is the valuable consideration for getting that contract to somebody who living here? Man and woman, not persons, and not citizens, not residents or somebody else, just for man and woman. What is the valuable consideration?
We don't respond, we just talk.
You don't have answer, right? So if there is no valuable consideration, there is no contract. We are following rules. We also want to follow these rules too. Is that clear?
Under interpretation, yeah.
Yes. And I sent the registered mail to the address which was in invitation, right? And nobody answered that. If we are not agreed to pay something, we are not in contract, right? Who is answering for, when I send letter, registered mail, whose responsibility to answer those questions? Why are you sending one person and waiting in contract another man and woman who should pay? Until there is no valuable consideration, there is no contract. We are going to follow that rule. I think there is no valuable consideration, right?
No.
I don't.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Dina Bettino. I live at 1512 Corkery Court at the Greens at Tuscaloosa. I've been a resident down here for 4 years. Having read the financials and public records, here's what I can tell the public. There is no deficit. According to the city's own proposed budget, there is a $50,000 surplus. Insurance payments were misrepresented. In 1 year, there was a $208,000 insurance settlement. The next year, a large amount was spent on fountains. The so-called shortfall was not tax dollars, but insurance money carried forward. Fees have been raised. It is not true that the TLBD rate has gone up since 2007. It was raised last fiscal year. The last budget item is Duke Energy. The city budget $243,000 annually for street lighting. It's more than 1/3 of the overall TLBD budget. Here's the problem. On September 4, 2025, last Thursday, Duke Energy announced a substantial rate reduction for 2026. Commercial customers should expect decreases between 9.6 and 15% as part of an annual rate adjustment. Two questions. First, would common sense suggest waiting to complete a rate study until after your largest vendor completed their annual study, just in case they decrease their rates right before you doubled ours? Second, wouldn't it be great if a city commission and HOA showed the same compassion for residents' financial hardships that the power company is showing? A 15% reduction in street light costs saves us $36,000. Add that to the 57 surplus, and we are at $93,000 in the bank next year. Renegotiate the contract of the California consultant. We paid $20,000 for a report that was mostly parcel ID numbers anyone could pull from the property appraiser. Hold back portions of the roughly $54,000 annually being transferred from the TLBD back to the city's general fund. Together, those steps would leave us between $100,000 to $125,000 in reserves, enough to responsibly plan future capital projects without doubling our taxes. I have to leave. Again, my name is Dina Patino. You have my address.
Thanks. Okay. Anyone else in this initial public input? Mr. Freeburn, and would you do me a favor? Would you pull the microphone down too when you get up there? Because it's not picking up everybody's. I want to make sure it's on the record.
Yesterday, I felt like I was screaming at you, so I know. Linda Freeburn, a resident. I'm not going to talk directly about the TLBD, but the overhead charges were referenced earlier. And I'm not going to ask for an answer, but when you get around to discussing it, that was one of the things that I was interested in, how those overhead charges are calculated and what exactly they're for. I guess sometimes maybe for not much, but
It's important.
just
We'll get there. Anyone else? Okay, then we will move on to item 400 and get right into the meat of the conversation. The increase in maximum annual Tuscarora maintenance assessment and approval of assessment roll. Ms. Queen.
Good evening. Brought my calculator for tonight. Holly Queen, Finance Director, here to speak on public hearing item number 400, the increase in the maximum annual Tuscarora assessment and approval of the assessment rolls. Skip me a second. I have a lot of items to go over. Okay. So I just want to give a high-level summary, some history of the fund, some more recent history, and kind of what we're looking at in the current environment. So, to begin, in August of 1999, the City Commission created and imposed special assessments to finance certain improvements and services which benefit the properties. If you could take that down, I'm not ready for that, actually. I don't want to distract anyone.
Yeah, we can't read that anyway. It's going to have to get way blown up.
When time comes, not just us, but the people
Really
will need it bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, I'm going to restart.
please.
In August of 1999, the City Commission created and imposed special assessments to finance certain improvements and services which benefit the properties within the Tuscarora Assessment Area, also known as Tuscarora Phase 1 and 2 Maintenance Assessment District. The original assessment program had several components of the assessment: Tuscarora Capital Phase 1 Assessment Area, the Tuscarora Capital Phase 2 Assessment Area, and a maintenance assessment for both Phase 1 and Phase 2. In May of 2007, the City Commission approved Resolution 2007-24, which combined both Phase 1 and 2 maintenance assessments and increased the cap from $115.82 to a combined $128 where it stands as of today. During the July 17, 2024 meeting of the Tuscarora Lighting and Beautification District Advisory Committee, the process was discussed to procure a vendor to provide the annual assessment district services as well as rate study. It was also discussed that several projects would have to be cut. I'm sorry, let me back up. It was also discussed that several projects would have to be cut in order to balance the FY25 budget. At the next quarterly meeting, October 30th, 2024, an update was given regarding the timeline of the study, as well as updating the members on the timeline of the landscaping contract, which is one of the very large items within this assessment district, that was up for renewal. The goal would be to have the study completed before the next budget cycle for fiscal year 2026, where we're at today. The meeting held on May 21st, 2025, included a presentation of projected financials before the rate study. It is on the website for that May 21st meeting, as well as a dialogue with the board regarding median rehabilitation, sign rehabilitation, and entrance, refresh, and associated cost. The committee agreed with the proposed projects and estimated costs and recommended spreading the costs over 4 years. The city retained the financial services of MBS, who prepared a 2025 assessment increase report, which is attached to the agenda, justifying an increase in the maximum maintenance assessment to $255.20 per equivalent residential unit to cover the city's future long-term maintenance costs, which will be incurred for maintaining the public improvements covered by the assessment. The resolution in front of you for this public hearing tonight, 2025-16, increases the maximum annual Tuscarora maintenance assessment from its $128 number to $255.20 and sets the rate as such for tax year 2025, fiscal year 2025-2026. It is $127.20 higher than the prior year. Just a few details. The City Commission is required to annually certify the assessment rolls and amount for each assessment district during the annual budget process. Prior to September 15th, the final assessment rolls and documents must be authorized and submitted to the Seminole County Tax Collector. The adoption of the annual resolution is required under City Ordinance Number 98-704. All right, so now if you'll please put up the financial statements. And make them a little bit bigger if possible.
Make it landscape and then switch it.
That's because it's a PDF, so it's a little hard to.
Okay, you can, yeah.
Do we have those pages, Holly?
They're in the agenda packet. Oh, no, they're not in the agenda packet. I'm sorry, they're not in the agenda packet. They'll be provided. And if you'd like a copy of them, I can make a copy of them.
There you go.
Okay. So, provided here is the history of the Tuscarora Lighting and Beautification District Maintenance Fund from fiscal year 2015, not from the inception. I provided these financials directly out of the city's ACFRs, which are all available on the city's website for the last 10 years, as well as our projected ending fund balance for 2025, which is the fiscal year we're currently in, and our current tentative budget, which went in front of council last night for 2026. One of the large things to see is at the bottom. The only things you might be able to see is from 2015 through 2025 projected. There's an estimated decrease in fund balance of approximately $231,000. Now, there are a couple items to note. As you can see, I have a little red arrow here where there was transfers out in the bottom line, and those moved up actually to our administrative overhead. So there was a change in accounting practice. It was not being done correctly in 2020. We corrected that, and going forward, it has been done correctly and applied as GFOA best practices to offset those costs. So, as Linda asked, and several people, and I think all of you have actually asked at one point, what is overhead? So overhead allocation is the cost of the administration of this fund. It includes the insurance to the wall and fountains, as well as the cost for using the city's finance and urban beautification teams. In context, this would be similar if an HOA used a management company to process invoices, purchase orders, produce financial statements, budgets, and all of the legal work required to assess this on the tax roll and for meetings such as this. This model was created back in 2015 and is actually in the budget for 2026 for a refresh this coming fiscal year, meaning this number will probably change. I just did a quick glance over, and for the last 2 years, actually the insurance is the bulk of this, and it was approximately $22,000 to $24,000 of that $50,000 cost that you see there. Okay, sorry, I'm a little nervous. Another item to note is the large swing in fund balance in fiscal year 2024. As stated, this was due to insurance proceeds that we were actually able to recover before construction costs. Typically doesn't happen, but due to the large nature of this project, which was well over $200,000, we were able to get those proceeds up front with the bids that we received from our insurance company in order to float the cash to pay for those repairs. Unfortunately, due to Hurricane Milton, the timing made these financial statements look a little wonky. We had to pause construction while the hurricane passed, so we received the proceeds in one fiscal year and we spent the money in a following fiscal year. It's just timing delay for that, but in total, those funds match up. Next slide, please. So moving along, I wanted to provide some historical budget pages from fiscal year 24, 25, and 26. So the first budget document, you might have to zoom out a little bit. There you go. So the first budget document here is from fiscal year 2024, and this is the year that we moved the assessment roll from 120 to 128. So this is actually the last time it was increased. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, far bottom right, you'll see the estimated fund balance with moving that $8 was leaving $33,283 estimated at that point in time. Now keep in mind, I believe at this point in time, the city didn't have audited financials. So these were all a high level estimate to get this budget document out. The next slide is for fiscal year 2025, which was for the current year that we're in. Again, we are at the 128, which is the cap. And if you'll scroll down, you'll see this one's very scary. It's $839. And the last one is the budget document that everyone reviewed last night. This is with, at the top, you'll see the charges for services are up double. That's estimated at the $255.20 at that new cap, along with the expenditures, including the new updated projects and revitalizations that the advisory committee suggested to council are included in those, which then puts our ending fund balance back closer to where I don't have as much heartburn to the $126,000 mark. Next is, if you could go to the next slide, there we go, if you can make this one just a little bit bigger. So this is the detail behind the rate study. This is for the next 5 years. Where we started out was with the current contracts that we're in, so Nature's Care, how much we're paying for Duke Energy, our current overhead allocation, and all of the normal maintenance costs that are needed, including stair-stepping things in there such as fungicide and fertilizer when those are needed every other year, seasonal flower rotation, normal irrigation inspections, and so forth. And so the number for the 255.20 came from that largest year of 2029. And the reason that we're recommending of going all the way up to the cap is to get that fund balance built back up so that we actually have the cash flow to be able to start some of those projects. And this was, as you can see, the items that are highlighted in yellow were all of those items that were discussed at that May 21st TLBD advisory committee. We gave them, they were looking for some numbers to put with the items they were looking to refresh. And then they recommended that we spread them out over 4 to 5 fiscal years. So you'll see the largest one, which is the median landscape replacement, is a 5-year project. The first 4 years is at $276,000 and the last year is at $100,000. The goal would be to replace the worst areas first and then work our way down. And then hopefully once they get a full reset, then it wouldn't cost as much to go ahead and maintain those plantings. Additionally, the other large items is the sign entrance renovations, which are spread over 4 years. And that's not just for the sign, that's basically for all of it. That's to replace all of the plants, to ensure the brickwork is taken care of, all the electricity, all of the irrigation, all the components that go into those landmark signs at all of the entrances of Tuscaloosa as a whole that everyone sees. So that was spread across 4 fiscal years, $125,000 across 4 years. Okay, so with that, just one point from public input, I just wanted to let everyone know. So the Duke Energy cost that's on here, the roughly $250,000. So that is actually not for the energy to the pole. That is specifically back when one of the phases was implemented. They wanted to upgrade the features. They wanted to upgrade the globes and the specific poles. You guys have a decorative pole. That is for the lease of all of those poles. That is not for the electricity. The electricity is funded through the general fund, as are all city streetlights. I know that Duke has talked about a decrease. I do not know that is to the lease structures of the poles. Typically, they build those in for a 10-year contract based on the capital infrastructure costs that are necessary. Okay. All right, so if you'll go to the next page. All right, so the final slide here is the current tentative budget proposed with the new max cap and the new rate set to $255.20, which is in the current budget book on the city website. The second column is at the current max cap of $128. And what I've also done is I've had to strip out everything that was recommended by the advisory committee just to be able to cover the costs. And so leaving it at the current cap of 128 per ERU puts you at an estimated ending fund balance of $6,982 at the end of fiscal year 2026. So with that, one of the items I would like you to keep in mind is that annually the assessment roll is approved by the commission. The reason for the rate study, the public hearing, the mailings, and the advertisements is strictly due to the increase in cap this year. So with that, I am here for any questions from the commission before we open it up to public comment.
Okay. And commissioners would like to go first. Sorry, the rebooting my tablet. So anyone like to go first?
I have just a couple.
Commissioner Baker.
When you said the signs are included, those are not the individual, like, neighborhood signs. Those are the big ones that are that say the country club, like, or Tuscaloosa Country Club neighborhood. How many of those are there? And can you specify?
I do not know the exact quantity of the signs. I do know they are decorative street poles that are not the normal regular stop sign or regular street sign. I don't know that it has to do with the country club.
No, I mean, I think it says like Tuscaloosa Country Club neighborhood or something like that. Is that the sign, like the wall signs?
No, so that would be, that would be the monument signs. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
It is for the ones that are within the assessment district. I have specific GPS coordinates. It's most for the ones that are outside, that are along the 434 corridor and the Tuscaloosa Road corridor, not the internal ones.
Gotcha. And then, when you mention what the reserve would be by stripping out everything, how does this assessment budget, what kind of reserve is necessary for these kind of accounts? Is it the same as like our city budget reserve?
So typically I wouldn't put it as high as the city budget because this is for a very specific purpose, right? It's not for paving of roads. It's not for public safety. This is specifically for aesthetic type features. Now, to get these items kicked off, we do need cash in the bank to be able to do that. So right now, the assessment district does not have the cash in the bank to do that until the cap is increased. So I would say, roughly 10 to 15% would be a decent range. We keep the general fund at approximately 25%, but that's, again, there's public safety in there, transportation, emergency type situations that are needed.
But we have
to cover
really
that.
large expenses with the fountains and whatnot too.
Correct,
So if
correct. So if we had another catastrophic failure with, say, the North Fountain, and it wasn't covered by insurance, I mean, the most recent one was roughly $250,000 to replace that. I do know that was discussed at the last meeting, which was a couple weeks ago. I know a lot of people have been asking questions as to why the geysers aren't as high. That's why. So all of that infrastructure under the ground was replaced for the South Fountain when that catastrophic failure happened. It has not been replaced for the North Fountain. And so if we were to turn those up, we could cause another catastrophic failure, which we do not want to do.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, just to answer your question on the monument signs, so there's 7 or 8 of them, depending on how you classify the feature on the east side of Winter Springs Boulevard, I'm sorry, west side of Winter Springs Boulevard at Tuscarora Road. Obviously, that feature is integrated with the fountains as well. So there's 7 features, Winter Springs Boulevard East near Seneca, Vista Willow Drive, Tuscarora, Dyson, Shetland, Howe Creek Drive, and Deer Run. So those are where those are located
Okay.
throughout the community.
Thank you.
To answer your question.
Mr. Attorney, so you were here when this got started.
Yes?
So as I share what I'm about to share, correct me if I'm wrong, please. My understanding is the whole purpose this was started, minus the part where Tuscarora itself doesn't have an HOA by itself, was the intent to maintain to the highest standard the beautification of Tuscarora.
Absolutely.
Concept being the highest standard, correct?
It's supposed to be an enhanced beautification. So it included all of the improvements that were done, all the wing walls, all the stop signs, the decorative street lights, the median along Winter Springs Boulevard, all enhancements above the baseline service that the city provides elsewhere.
I know you went through a lot to get this there. As you understand it, we move forward now 26 years.
It's been a long time.
It has. And I know, I was part of some of the original fights in a very different capacity than up here, obviously through some of the transitional stuff. From the concept before to where we are sitting today, has much changed? And when I say that, like the 7 signs we're talking about, were those the same original signs, or have we been expanding on this over time?
The entrance, all the entrance walls and features, those were all done initially. To my knowledge, there haven't been any additional ones. The stop signs and all the other decorative signs, that was initially done, and there might have been replacements over the years, like I would call maintenance. The fountain and all of the beautification in the front of Tuscarora, on Tuscarora Road, all that was done initially, as part of the assessment. But there have not, I think the only, like, if you want to say replacement, a lot of landscaping has been replaced, obviously, because of, age and deterioration. And then all of the other initial improvements have just are required to be maintained.
But locations have been the same. The light
Been the
poles we
same.
talked about, it's all been the same.
Yes, for the most part, yes, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Next question's for Holly. So, we take a look at this, we're coming to the residents and saying, we need to increase you by 100%. We've had many years of foreseeing this come, 26. I know from my original time it was, hold it back, hold it back, hold it back. The term that I've been using this year, which I steal from other people, is deferred maintenance. Is that where we're dealing with?
Yes.
If we were to increase it slowly, is that doable, city manager and finance person?
So if that is the will of the commission,
I'm just asking.
it is legally doable, correct. However, you have 2 pieces of this component. You have the cap, and then you have the setting of the assessment. So I would look at those separately. The cap requires rate study, it requires all of these legal notices, it requires a lot, which has been time, energy, money, that is being recommended to go ahead and approve tonight. If the will of the commission is to do this incrementally, my recommendation would be to set the cap at the 255.20 and then somewhere between the ditches over here.
Got it. And what would change would be those projects, the projects, as you just said, but the stormwater, the ground signs, walls, the ability to maintain the wall, the operating budget. be the things that would change
So
drastically?
essentially what would have to happen is those revitalization efforts would be stretched. So instead of 4 to 5 years, it could go 5 to 10 years. It could take longer. Obviously, the longer things happen, it's going to cost more money. But definitely looking to ensure that the public and the commission is comfortable with the rate that they set. But like I said, just think of those things as two different items. That assessment roll does have to come in front of the council every year. Typically, it comes in August, in between, after budget workshop. We actually changed the Tuscola Lighting and Beautification dates in order to align to make sure that they are included in the budget process. Where they were set before, it was very difficult to get them included in that budgetary process. So I believe it was about 6 months ago, maybe the November meeting last year, we adjusted those dates to ensure that the advisory committee is included in that budget process before it is brought to you as an entire budget.
Thank you.
Commissioner, if I could, just to add historical perspective, this is something that the former couple of finance directors ago, back in 2019, so 6 years ago, identified as something that needed to be addressed, just so the audience knows. I mean, obviously, this is a difficult conversation, and for whatever reason, decisions were made prior to any of us being here, that the fund was in need then, and you can see that historically, Hawley has provided the last few fiscal years of showing where the ending balance is on the certified. So this is something that the city has known for well over 6 years now, and we're at a point now where, as you can see, with $6,000, that doesn't leave us in a good position to be. Any type of repair is going to, be substantially more than that. So just a little historical perspective.
Yeah, and I will tell you, since the moment I walked in the door, the advisory committee has asked me to do this rate study. And unfortunately, walking in with with a year and a half of audited financials not done, I wasn't comfortable in moving anything forward because I didn't have a place to start. And so once we got those audited financials locked down, and we were able to go through the procurement process to get a vendor to do this, they've been very patient, but they were hounding me from the very first Tuscola meeting that I was in as the finance director. So.
Anyone else? And I've got a question if you're all finished.
I have another question, but you can.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There, in here, you've included the by owner sheet. And can you explain a little bit to the audience what it means? Because not everybody would be assessed at the 255.20 rate, just like they're not all assessed at 128 right now.
Correct. So it's based on ERU, which is an equivalent residential unit. So it actually speaks to the detail in the rate study that's in there. It's based on the square footage of your residential unit, as well as commercial properties are assessed a little bit different. So if, say, you have a townhouse, you're not assessed a full equivalent residential unit, you're assessed a partial one. If you're a commercial business that's within the assessment district, you might have a larger one. And so that dollar amount is based on ERU, very similar to our stormwater fee. So if you're a residential unit, you have one ERU. If you're a larger ERU, it's a multiplier effect, basically. And so each of those letters was built specifically for your parcel ID. That is where all of the work comes into. So with over 4,600 parcels in Tuscola, that is what MBS's main project is to basically pull all that data to create all of those documents that have to go out to every single homeowner that identifies specifically what their ERU assessment is and what their caps could be. I know the letters were a little confusing. It's based on by the requirements of the state statute and the ordinance of what's supposed to be in those letters. So unfortunately, it was a standard letter that went out. It was the exact same letter that went out in 2007, as well as the same clipping from the newspaper was the same exact layout and format. So unfortunately, it was a little confusing, but it is all based on the ordinance and state statute.
Thank you.
So I had Ms. Freeburn maybe to help. But so yesterday you had asked a question about, 4,900, there seems to be a lot of administrative costs. And again, you mentioned earlier, we have to contract effectively with the county. They raise the money from the property, there's property appraiser, and then there's the tax collector for the county. They add this on to the bottom of your tax bill, and then they charge us a fee to collect that money, organize it, sending everything out to you, and then they forward that money less a fee to us. But then there is this NBS report that someone mentioned earlier. Hey, do a study, have a third party come in and do a study. Well, that is something we did, and it cost a lot of money. Then there's the mailing. Can you just talk a little bit about, I know specifically you said $4,900. That was simply to mail out $4,900 just to mail it. Does that sound about right?
No, she's talking about the overhead allocation.
Okay, so how can we just a little?
So the overhead
What is
allocation.
the cost of bringing this today, unrelated to the normal
I think you're
administrative
confusing
cost?
two different things, so
Yeah, that
let me.
is exactly
yep,
what I'm
yep.
saying.
So
Define
the
the two
cost to
different
bring this is specific to the rate study and the mailing. That was approximately $18,000.
That includes the study?
Yes.
Thank you.
The overhead allocation is something that the city assesses for us to operate this assessment district.
Basically be a property management.
So basically, like I said, it's basically in essence like a property management company would do. So I have to cut POs, I have to cut invoices, I have to produce financial statements, I have to walk through audits, I have to handle assessment roles. My team has to pull together all of these things, audit these things, as well as the urban beautifications time, as well as Brian's time. All of those people, we have computers we have to pay for. We have all these different things, and it's being allocated to this assessment district. It also gets allocated to the enterprise funds. It also gets allocated to the Arbor Fund and the Solid Waste Fund. It's basically your corporate overhead allocation pushed down to those individual functions.
Great, I understand that
Sorry, that was
point.
probably a lot.
The point that I'm, and thank you for clarifying that, the overall general cost of doing business.
In addition,
Right.
the
Keep it-
insurance, as I
right.
talked about, which
Right.
is
And
about half of
insurance
it
is
right now.
phenomenal now. The point that I think is important that everyone understand, again, I'm going to repeat, it's that we have two different discussions. Are we going to increase the cap? And then once we do, if we do, what are we actually going to set the rate at? It cost us $18,000 to get basically to this point. to
Just
do
for this study and mailing.
And the mailing. If we don't raise the cap this year, and we have, and please correct me, this is my, ultimately my question. If we don't increase the cap enough this year, we're gonna have to turn around and spend $18,000 again to reevaluate and start over.
Potentially. It depends on how long these numbers are good for. So obviously, a model is only as good as its data. If we get crazy increases, then yes, we would have to go do a rate study again to determine what that new projections should be.
Right.
If it seems reasonable to keep the same rate study, we're still going to have to do all the mailings, all the advertisements, and hold one of these hearings
Folks, if you
again.
can keep conversations down, it's really, it's hard to hear when everybody's mumbling things. So, okay, so potentially can hold for a year, but we'll have to see and see what rates go up.
Right.
And
And
whether
again,
or not we have
remember,
to-
there's two pieces to this. There's the
Exactly.
cap and there's the setting the assessment roll. And that assessment roll comes to the council every year.
Right, okay. Other questions? No, well, frankly, no, I would like to take, okay, if there's no more questions for Holly, I would like to make a couple of points. And that, listen, the truth is, look, I'm gonna come at this as neutral as I can. I'm not gonna push real hard, but I am uniquely, I think, at a level, along with many of the residents are here, am somewhat uniquely qualified to speak on this topic, having been a resident for over 20 years, having been on the president of the Tuscaloosa Homeowners Association, having been served on the Tuscaloosa Lighting and Beautification District Advisory Board, and doing those, I have some unique insights. First, I think it's important that we all understand some history here, okay? First of all, there is the Tuscaloosa Homeowners Association, which is voluntary, that oversees all of Tuscaloosa. Then there's 24 smaller HOAs within Tuscaloosa. Some are mandatory, some aren't. Some have dues, some don't. Then there's the Tuscaloosa Lighting and Beautification District Advisory Committee, the TLBD. And so there are two different things, and these are the two organizations that seem to really have initiated and started this whole thing. So historically, going back in the mid-90s, there was conversations from the county when they proposed tearing out the medians all the way down Winter Springs Boulevard, making it 2 lanes in each direction, putting in traffic lights, and so it was supposed to be a cut-through from Oviedo to Tuscaloosa Road, and then for those of you who have been here long enough, Seneca Boulevard, that used to be called Lake Drive. So you were able to go from Oviedo to Castleberry and Dog Track Road via Winter Springs and our community of Tuscaloosa. That was the idea. And then at the exact same time, we're very, very close to it. They were on Seneca, for anyone who lives on Seneca, right? That's that last turn off Winter Springs Boulevard before you go underneath 417. Right there, they wanted to carry Seneca through to the mall and connect it to Red Bug Lake Road. They were trying to alleviate pressure on Red Bug Lake Road. And the Tuscaloosa Homeowners Association and the commission and a lot of people got really involved. They invested a lot of money in court cases and lawyers and things, and we fought to keep those traffic lights in 2 lanes in each direction and preserving Tuscaloosa. And I think that was a very noble idea at the time. There's a little bit of opinion. I'm trying not to do that, but that was the idea. That at that time, the THOA wanted to make improvements. So they scored a big win, right? They kept out these big main roads that were going to have a big impact. They then came, effectively, they were trying to put themselves out of business, right? Instead of HOA dues and all of that kind of stuff to maintain Tuscaloosa, they went to the city. The residents of Tuscaloosa went to the city and asked the city to take this over. This isn't something that the city was out chasing. This is something that the residents en masse, with 70% or more, it might be off their number, but they had to have a certain threshold. It had to be like a supermajority. And there was a referendum, and they passed it, asking the city to take it over. At that time, for the residents, for the HOA, to build the fountains and make improvements, there was going to be a $450 per year fee to every household in Tuscaloosa. Right, we're at $128 now. Back then, this is in the mid-90s, it was going to be $450. But because the city had bond ratings and, right, AAA bond ratings or whatever credit ability, it took out bonds, they made all them, right, they did a referendum, the residents voted for it, approved it en masse. It passed, and they made a lot of improvements. Now the problem that we're faced with is that there's not enough money, because it hasn't, that cap hasn't gone up since 2007. There's not enough money to do the work. And simply what has to happen now is we decide, do we want to bring it back to what it was 10 years ago? Or do we want to potentially, as the gentleman called for last night, he said, let's rip the damn things out. Let's get rid of the fountains. We don't want them. Let's get rid of them. We can go back to the bare minimum if that's what we want. So real fast, let me just take a quick last couple things. So so currently, so how about this as an interesting point? So currently, and Holly touched on it. So the rate is $128. Some people pay an extra $36. Mr. Markey, I know because I went looking through tax documents all over, right? Sarah, I know that you pay that extra $36 above because there's still some bonds out there. But other people, like in the condos right next to Trotwood Park, they actually pay $29 less. But again, we're at about $128, right? Give or take $30. I guess effectively, I'll leave it at that. I'll let everybody have their say, understanding the background, and we'll make a decision. The bottom line here is what Holly just said. And Holly, please correct me if I'm wrong. If we do nothing, we are going to keep the lights on. We're going to water the lawn, cut the grass, trim the hedges. But there is no, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there is no money to repair the fountains when they break down again, and there is no money to replant dead plantings. Bushes, hedges, there's no money for that. Is that approximately correct? we're going to strip it down
There's
to
a little, not a lot,
a little?
a
Okay.
little.
Okay.
But,
And-
but none for any crazy fountain breakdowns, just
Right.
normal repair, maintenance.
If,
Define little.
well, how about this? Again, repeat. This budget last year was nearly $800,000.
Well, that was with the capital.
That's the 250 included.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay,
roughly
yeah.
a little over $500,000 every year.
Right.
Back in, I think it was like 2006, 2007, it was around 250,000. But with the increase of the lights and things like that, that increased the cost, yeah.
Yeah. I think I was just trying to lay out some perspective. If there's no further discussion, we can go to, please.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I just give a little perspective, just so folks understand the extent of what Tuscola is? Obviously, it's the oldest and largest, one of the oldest and largest planned PUDs in Seminole County. It's substantial. As the mayor pointed out, essentially the city is serving as really the HOA and the property management of such a substantial. But I just want to give real quick a few bullets so you understand the depth of what is maintained and where these funds are. And, you know, if you're to look at this as if it was fully privatized, as the mayor shared, over $400 back then, certainly would probably be substantially higher than that now. The city maintains through these funds 7 monument signs, 23 landscaped medians, approximately 15 acres of heavily landscaped area, 2 57,000-gallon water features, 2 lighted flagpoles, and approximately 123 decorative street signs and stop sign poles. So it's substantial. It's a substantial area, and you know, we want to keep it looking the way it is.
And 2.5 miles of Winter Springs Boulevard. But
And
Commissioner
I-
Baker.
I think Polly stated that half of that fund goes towards insurance, just for all of that as well. What I wanted to ask Holly, it's unfortunate that the committee that's making this recommendation isn't here to present their findings and what they've been asking for. So I want to make it clear that the city isn't asking for this stuff. It is a committee of your peers and neighbors that are saying, we want to make these improvements and this is what is necessary. Thanks for the rate study to back us. Is that right?
Correct. And unfortunately, Miss, the chair was not able to make it. She had a work commitment.
Yeah.
But she did provide, which I believe all of you were provided with. She had put together an entire slide presentation completely unprompted by me. I told her I was ready to hire her because her spreadsheets were so fabulous, where she went back on the city website and basically pulled everything on her own and went through the details and looked at the years from 2009 to present. And went through that at the last meeting, which was, I believe, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So just a little bit of my own personal history. I moved here 4 years ago from Waterford Lakes area. I lived in the Eastwood neighborhood, which was a $280 a month assessment fee for our HOA, a month, not a year, and didn't cover nearly the amount. And when I found the house that I currently live in on Winter Springs Boulevard, it was, the reason I loved it so much was because of what it looks like driving down Winter Springs Boulevard. So, you know, I feel very lucky to live here. Do I want to raise my own taxes? Mine's going to be more than $255 if we go to the cap. It's going to be $291, I think. So when other taxes have already raised, just me purchasing my house upped the amount of my property taxes because it increased so drastically from the person that owned it for 28 years before me. So
thank you.
You know, all of these costs that we're all going through. This is not just a you situation, it's a me situation too. And it's not just a me situation, the city is feeling this too. So if we want to continue having beautiful homes and our property values raising, we have to consider, you know, do we want to tear out all of our dead trees and leave it at nothing, or do we want to continue having maintenance? So, you know, am I prepared to raise it to the full amount? I don't know. So my next question is, did the committee give any feedback on if there was a middle way we could meet?
The committee recommended doing it to the full amount of the $255.20.
Okay.
If we do not do it to the full amount, I don't see where we could start on any of the projects that they had proposed.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a letter from her that she specifically asked me to read
Okay.
into the record.
Okay.
So when it comes time to that, I'll do that. There are members of the TLBD board here, and there are members of the THOA as well here to speak. I believe both organizations are unified. I'll let them speak to it, but I think it's unanimous, and both organizations are asking for the full. But again, this is it's the residents' decision. It's your committee. We're providing a service in managing this.
It puts us in a fun spot.
Yeah. Commissioner Caruso.
I don't know about everyone else, but I'm ready to hear from the residents.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So why don't I just figure it up? Okay. We'll start with then Dr. Kurt Markey, who is I'm going to run through all the blues, and then we'll open it all up. Okay?
And if anybody needs one, they're outside.
Or,
you can come over
or,
here.
or somebody will hand you one, yeah? So, Dr. Markey is the president of the Tuscarora Homeowners Association.
Good evening, everybody. Good to be here, good to be a part of this whole discussion. I have a statement that I'd like to read on behalf of the Homeowners Board of Directors. But let me start with this. My name is Dr. Kurt Markey. I'm president of the Tuscarora Homeowners Association. Our Board of Directors is in favor of the increased assessment for the Tuscarora Light and Beautification District. We not only are in favor of it, we feel that it's necessary to keep Tuscarora as one of the most beautiful planned communities in Seminole County. My family moved to Tuscarora in July of 1997. The community developed 20 years prior to that. In 1997, the area was showing a great deal of wear. Numerous homes were for sale, landscaping was in poor condition, and the country club was up for grabs. In 1998, with the help of the city, the Tuscarora Light and Beautification Committee was formed. The Tuscarora residents voted favorably to add $120 annually to their tax bill, and I see that that figure jumps around from different places. This amount was later increased to $128 a year. The money was used for upgrading and maintaining the common areas of the community, and through the years, the District Advisory Committee oversaw countless improvements, the streetlights, the landscaping, the fountains, and they built the entrances. I would attend some of the district's meetings, and I learned the fund that was established in 1998 was no longer adequate to cover the expenses. An increase would soon be needed. 27 years later, the value of the dollar of $120 in 1998 does not cover the current expenses. With an average yearly inflation rate of 3% compounded annually, proposed increase can only be viewed as a cost adjustment rather than even a tax increase. It's just even. The proposed assessment is only to be levied on the Tuscarora homeowners, and our board asks that the city commissioners vote favorably to make the change.
Thank you, sir. We'll go with Dennis Jones. Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I had quite a few notes prepared, but they've all been blown away. So I'll try and keep it short and simple. Dennis Jones. I live at 1106 Pheasant Circle in Tuscarora. I bought my home there in 1991, so I've been in this community for about almost 35 years. Raised my family here, have seen the market changes that have happened over those years. My youngest son was married at the country club. That being said, I think a point that really needs to be made, and I think you made it, is the market that we enjoy in Tuscarora has been phenomenal. When there has been a down market, Tuscarora has fared better than most every community in Central Florida. The appearances that we have from the fountain, from the monuments, from the island, and so forth, have been a real staple of the community for as long as I've been here. And because of, I didn't mention, but I've been in real estate in this area since 1986. And it is a tremendous asset that I use in my marketing when I'm convincing people to buy in Tuscaloosa or when I'm helping people sell in Tuscaloosa. These are important factors. So the market increase that we've enjoyed in this community has a lot to do with that. When I bought my home in '91, right now it's worth 4 times what I paid for it. And I think that's, and I lived through also some of the things that you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, when they tried to open up Winter Springs Boulevard and make it connect to Red Bug Lake Road and got involved with that fight there. And I just think you got to step back and say, what would this community look like if you didn't have the median, if that was a 4-lane road going down the middle of our community, and the fact that it's time to catch up with the economy, that we've had this $128 for 16 years. It's not going to do what we need it to, and the fountains and the waterfalls have not worked properly for as long as I've been on the TLBD, which is over 2.5 years, and the TLBD unanimously has voted to ask you to approve this assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have Mr. Phillips again. He left, okay. And, okay, then we have Kim Coburn.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Kim Coburn.
If you'll just
and
speak
I have
right
been a Tuscaloosa resident for almost 30 years and a local realtor for over 43 years and on the THOA board for 7. Tuscaloosa is one of the most beautiful and cherished communities in all of Central Florida. It offers a wonderful variety of homes for every single phase of everybody's lives. Many of us have owned several different homes in Tuscaloosa. I'm on my 5th home currently, and it is a magnificent place to live. The reason it is because the way it looks. And you drive up to those fountains, and people know our fountains. They react to our fountains and our landscaping and our just everything about Tuscaloosa. And thank you to the Parks and Rec. They've done a great job as well. But it is just a fantastic place to live. And if we let that slip, our property values will plummet. I can promise you that. And Perplexity, I looked it up today just to try to get some stats. Perplexity says that if you don't have a grand entrance versus having a grand entrance, your property values could plummet 15%. So to me, it's a no-brainer that we need to keep those amenities up. We need to keep our values up. Does anybody want to lose 15% on their home? I don't think so. And Dennis was absolutely spot on. When we are in a bad market, our market still is strong. And if we let this happen, if we let our aesthetics go, we will drop too. Please don't let that happen.
Okay. Karen Meyer.
Karen Meyer, a resident of Winter Springs. Visual enrichment is as important as any other infrastructure. That's why the city has new building landscaping standards. And that's why homeowners landscape their property. It is imperative to maintain our community standards.
Okay. Tommy Farr.
My name's Tommy
Carr, and I live at
Oh, yeah,
680 Oswego
Oh,
Court. Tommy
you'll
Carr,
Yes, start that over.
680 Oswego Court, Winter Springs, been here for 33 years. And I heard all the word salad being talked, and I think these people might have been paid to come here, but somebody's got to tell me, why is 100% increase in something you did in phase one, you're not doing in phase two? Now, I understand the price for doing things is a little more expensive, but it sure as hell ain't 100%. Somebody please tell me what that is. And I listened to the I think, city manager, excuse me, he's talking about past practice where somebody didn't do this or somebody didn't do that. Somebody please help me out and tell me what you're giving me for a 100% increase in my taxes, please. Anybody?
It's not question and answer.
Oh, you're not going to answer me?
We're not
No,
allowed.
we're not allowed to.
You're not allowed to? Oh, then I'm wasting my time.
Okay. Matthew Logan.
Are they both the same name?
You say Matt Logan? Did you say Logan or Williams?
It said Matthew. Yeah, Matthew Logan, sorry about that.
It happens all the time.
We thought there were two of them.
Happened last week. Thanks, I'm glad I attended today. My name is Matt Logan. I live at 196 Nandina Terrace in Winter Springs. Been here 27 years, moved down from Chicago. I'll never move again. Looking at the budget 100%, that's why I'm here today. I think that is an outrageous number. Listening to the vice mayor, it's the sins of the past that we're trying to get taken care of now. I think we should increase that cap up to the max. No more consultants. I work part-time as a consultant. All they do is charge you money. So get that taken care of, and then take a look at the assessments. Take care of COLA and step it up to where you can have a good budget over 5 years and put some plans out where you know what you're going to do every year when it comes to planting trees, taking care of Winter Springs Boulevard. It's a beautiful boulevard. Never make it a 4-laner. And the landscaper, make sure they're doing their job. If you go on Vista Willa towards 434, you take a left, you can't see oncoming traffic. It's too high. So give some guidance to your landscaper. I was going to ask about the 22, 23, 24 budget, but I see you put it up there now, so my questions were answered there. 100%, too strong right now. Ratchet it up. Somebody presenting this kind of budget in a business environment, you'd be sent back to the drawing board to come up with a different plan. So go back, get a different plan, increase the cap so you don't have to hire another consultant, and take a look at how you want to step that up. But 100% at one time, nah, think about that. Be responsible fiscally for Winter Springs. Thank you.
And I'm trying to read handwriting and pronunciation. It looks like Ratty Adamovic. Yep. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, hi. My name is Roddy Ajemovich, and I'm at 1512 Aspenwood Street. I'm on the board there, but I'm not representing the board there at Chelsea Park. But my wife and I moved here. It's a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood. We don't want to compromise the character of our community. I have very little to add, except that Uber drivers are always wowed when they bring us home, coming down Winter Springs Boulevard. And the $100 increase doesn't seem at all out of place in today's cost environment, and I certainly hope you all vote that way to increase the cap and not step up the drag out any improvements, and then, as it was mentioned earlier, pay higher rates for all of these improvements 5, 7, 10 years down the road. Thank you.
Bill Grodsky.
Good evening. Bill Grodsky. I live on Seneca Boulevard down near Winter Springs Boulevard. And I'm here to request that we go ahead and do the full vote on the increase. I am also on the board of Chelsea Woods, their homeowners association. The people I've talked to are all in favor of doing the same thing, but everybody expresses to me
why haven't we been gradually doing this all along? So I would also request that we look at putting a mechanism in place, if we do increase it now, of continuing to increase it going forward to meet the future needs of Tuscarora. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Louis Pinheiro.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the commission. I'm a resident of Winter Springs, Chestnut Ridge neighborhood for 20 years. And after hearing some of the special interest opinions, I'd like to perhaps bring a perspective of the individual homeowner. I think everybody is aware of the current economic situation in this nation and how many families are being affected. I myself, recently I lost my job after 40 years of service to this nation, and I have to be concerned now of one of the newest members of the fixed income community. I have to be concerned with every expenditure that my household engages with. And for that matter, I'd like to bring attention to the matter of 100% increase in taxes is not something that I can look at lightly too. Specifically when I hear the words beautification as opposed to essentials and critical needs. So that's the perspective I'd like to bring the commission to, taking a look at what's critical, what's absolutely needed, as opposed to things that perhaps could be done more gradually and optional items. I know that it's not palatable to everybody. Some people tend to gain a benefit from increased values, but some people have to take a look at whether or not one can afford everyday expenses, and even more so, even being able to stay at your home of your choosing, depending on the increased cost of taxes. So that's something that I definitely need to make sure that everybody is keeping very at the foremost of considerations on how increased taxes affect members of the community, affordability, and basically being able to cover everyday expenses. Again, my focus on my personal budgets is essentials rather than wants, especially when they're not in an essential category. So that's a perspective I'd like to, for you all to keep in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Jean Gray.
My name is Jean Gray. I live on Ayerswood Court, and I've been there since 1982. So I have seen all of these changes. And when the TLBD first came into existence, it wasn't without some controversy, but it was overwhelmingly favored by the referendum, which was a non-binding referendum in Tuscarora. And I think that all of us over the years have reaped the benefit of living in the kind of community where we thought it was going to be when we moved there. And the whole purpose originally was to maintain an aesthetic level in the community that wasn't necessarily offered by the standard level of care that the city could afford. And everybody wanted it, we wanted more. And I think that over the years it has proved to be of economic importance for everybody that has lived there. And I think that we need to look into the future because nothing costs what it did 30 years ago. Everything has increased, and to be, if we do not raise this cap now, we're just being short-sighted about what our expenses are going to be in the future. So I think we need to be forward-thinking, and I think we need to maintain the aesthetic level that we have because it is of benefit to the entire community. So I urge you to move forward with approving the cap. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Denise Ritchie.
Hi, my name is Denise Ritchie, and I live at 155 Cherry Creek Circle in the Reserve, and I am here for the HOA. And speaking of, gosh, I've got so much to say, so I need that 5 minutes for the HOA. Yes. I think there's a lot of you that don't know the history of the Reserve. We've been there almost 30 years. And when we moved there, Tuscarora was nothing more than just bahia. There was no irrigation, there were no shrubs, no trees, no landscape whatsoever. And as we grew into phase 2, we realized that we, between the two neighborhoods, kind of claim that area as what represents the reserves. So we approached the city back in the day, and were granted to be able to do a little landscaping. Well, we did more than landscaping. We took over all of Tuscarora from 434 entry to the trail. So it was a huge assessment. And when all was said and done, we were almost $18,000 out of the reserve funds, not a dime from the city. We pulled up all of the bahia, we put in St. Augustine, we irrigated, we put in every bit of landscape that you see there now, crepe myrtles, and we have also paid for over 25 years to maintain it, which means our landscapers have maintained Tuscarora. This has been at a huge expense for us, and we have only recently, because of mounting expenses in our reserves, communities have had to give back part of that because we couldn't afford to continue taking care of what's behind our gates, which is our responsibility solely, and keep up with the mowing and the fertilizing and all of that, so that now the easement is being mowed by the city, and we're maintaining the rest of it. A point being, quickly, is that there are two entries. There's a entry with the signage on either side coming in from 434 that hasn't had a shrub in it in forever and forever and forever. And being also a member of the TLBD, I offered to say, I'll buy the shrubs. I understand, I'll buy the shrubs. I'll even plant them. And I was turned down. And I offered again that if there's a liability to my planting, I will just buy them, donate them to the city, so we have something there. And I was turned down again. And the little, island there looks awful. It looks so embarrassing as being a main artery coming in, that we can only do as much as we can do. And so it's a big ask of 89 homes who are feeling pretty tapped out of doing what we feel a service to the city and benefiting the reserve as well. But so when you ask for this money, it's not that it's such a huge amount that we don't totally agree, but we're feeling tapped out. And I think that's where the 89 homes are saying, wait a minute, we're taking care of Tuscarora. You know, where are we here? So that's my venting. That's it.
Thank you. Okay. And Scott Ritchie.
So I am attached to my wife.
Yeah,
I also live in the reserve. I'm representing just myself, though, and not the HOA, but thanks for your time. And to be brief, I made myself a couple of notes. First off, good evening. Thanks for the invitation, the opportunity to speak. The point that I want to make is the fact that this discussion is not just about a tax increase. It's about trust and accountability. We've lived here for 30 years. We were one of the original homes within the reserve. We've been asked to accept nearly 100% increase. This is just not a number. It's double the burden on every homeowner inside the Tuscarora PUD. And yet, not every homeowner will benefit equally, since much of this increase is tied to the beautification along Winter Springs Boulevard. But before I even get into fairness, I want to pose a question. Why should we pay more when what we've already invested has not been managed effectively? Because we can see the way that what happened with the fountains, we can see what Winter Springs Boulevard looks like now. So let's talk about what we actually see every day. The fountains, the supposed centerpiece of our community. They've been broken for many, 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 and I'll keep going, months. And only now are they just about operational. As I learned this evening, they're not even fully operational. So we're again asked to compromise. The landscaping along Winter Springs Boulevard has looked awful for some time, and it's been very poorly maintained. The Tuscarora entrance, where I live, has never been updated in any of the plantings. I've written multiple emails. My wife was the one who volunteered to weed plant the stuff. We've even irrigated it. Nothing's been done there. These aren't opinions. This is the lived reality for every resident. And yet we're told the solution is to double our taxes. Seriously, that's the solution, is to double our taxes. It feels like being asked to double down on a bet when we haven't seen a return on the first one. There's got to be a better way forward. I don't disagree with something that needs to be done, but instead of an overnight 100% increase, why not an incremental plan? I spent 35 years in business. That's how business operates. Smaller steps, each tied to a clear, measurable outcome. For example, first, show that the fountains are fully repaired and well maintained. Next, show that the landscaping across the community, I mean across the entire community, meets the agreed upon standards that were first laid out when TLBD first came around. And also show transparent accountability for all TLBD funds. Then and only then come back for the next step. This approach builds accountability and rebuilds trust. It proves our money is being used wisely and gives the TLBD board and this commission the chance to demonstrate results. Commissioners, I believe beautification is important, but credibility is essential. I'm almost there. If you want residents to support you, don't just ask for more money, show us some results first. Then you earn not just our dollars, but you earn our trust. Thank you. And sorry if I went over.
Tim Waynesbury.
Hey, good evening. My name's Tim Waynesbury. I live at 149 Nandina. I'm a longtime resident of Winter Springs. I'm also the treasurer of the Howell Creek Homeowners Association, and I'll be speaking as a representative of the HOA, okay? I'm speaking tonight in opposition to the proposed 99% increase in the maximum rate for the TLBD assessment. The justification for the increase fails to adequately define requirements, nor does it provide a well-thought-out strategy, in my opinion, for how those resources or how those requirements will be satisfied. Let me speak briefly about requirements, priorities, and strategies. City reps briefed the advisory committee on 21 May, identifying 4 potential categories of requirements. Total cost, $1.83 million. I found the discussion of requirements to be inadequate. I found significant differences between the numbers presented to the committee in May, the recommended budget in the NBS study report, and the numbers in the 2026 Winter Springs budget. Here's a couple of examples. The briefing identified $1.1 million requirement to improve the landscaping of 23 medians along Winter Springs Boulevard. Discussion was generally focused on the types of improvements that were needed: new plants, bushes, trees, and grass. There was no discussion about the criteria that would be used to prioritize which of those 23 medians will be attended to first. No timelines to complete the improvements, no strategy, no plan. Next, $500,000 to improve the landscaping around the brick monuments at the entrances of Tuscarora. None of this money will be used for the brick monuments themselves. This is just landscaping. Again, little discussion of the work required and no discussion of priorities, schedules, or timelines. The total cost of landscaping work with the medians and the brick monuments, $1.6 million. The NBS budget recommends increases of $337,000 next year, from $175K in the current budget to $512 in the new budget. The Winter Springs budget increases fundings for grounds next year by $406,000, from $175K to $581,000. There's no explanation of what the NBS or city budgets include. More importantly, we start out at the max rate with our assessment next year, and I don't have a lot of confidence that we will see reductions in those assessments based on the city's track record over the past 20 years with assessments for TLBD. $176K to renovate the pool and the fountain on the north side of Winter Springs Boulevard. The NBS budget recommends $72,000. That's $100,000 different than what was briefed to the committee in May. The City of Winter Springs budget includes just $21,000 for fountain maintenance in 2026. $50,000 to repair 123 street signs in Tuscaloosa. The NBS budget recommends $125,000 for signage maintenance, $75,000 more than what the committee was briefed in May. There was talk about creating a TLBD reserve fund. However, no specific number has been identified. There was no discussion about how the reserve fund would be created, and there was no mention of a TLB reserve fund in either the NBS report or in the city budget. Finally, I understand that the City Commission has tentatively approved the 2026 budget, which includes an increase of $544,000 in the TLB assessment revenue based on the new rate of $256 per year. You know, a quick review shows the numbers in the city budget are significantly different than what was in the NBS recommendation. $32,000 less in predicted revenue, $100,000 in lower expenditures. I'm not sure where these numbers come from. My recommendation is that based on what you've heard tonight, the commissioners reconsider the increase in the assessment for next year, approve an assessment that'll cover your predicted shortfall. Holly showed us it's about $50,000 if we don't do anything. If you raise the assessment by $10, that'll give you over $55,000 in additional revenue. That will give the staff, the team, to go enough time to sit down, grind the numbers, define the requirements, establish a strategy on how to go forward. Bottom line, I'm not opposed to providing the resources necessary to keep Tuscaloosa beautiful. However, a 99% increase in the assessment got to be justified with clearly defined requirements and a strategy for satisfying those requirements. And until that is provided, I will remain opposed to any large increases in the Tuscaloosa assessment. Thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Avery Smith.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Avery Smith. I live at 201 Arrowhead Court in Winter Springs. I am opposed to raising anything tonight. I have a lot of experience in Winter Springs with your taxes, particularly your fire tax. How many of you remember the fire tax that was changed to the city and how it affected the units per house? My taxes, instead of paying $175, went up to about $2,800 because of your decision. So I don't trust any of the numbers coming out of the body tonight. Secondly, I want to remind this body that the fountains are on Eastman property. The underlying owner of that property is the Tuscaloosa Homeowners Association. So the city could turn that off, and that would revert back to the board, and we wouldn't have to deal with any of the problem with the fountains, which haven't worked for many, many years, not many, many months. They just recently were improved, I think, right before an election. So when it comes to the decisions here and like the seasonal flowers and things like that, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you doing xeriscape? Why are you watering? We have statutes in Florida that tell us that we're supposed to be conserving water and xeriscaping. What are you doing changing the flowers out? And you rip them out before they're even dead. I mean, you just decide, hey, the calendar's flipped over, it's a new month, I'm gonna go spend another $50,000 and swap everything out. And one of the points I want to make too is you talk about your street lighting. I actually negotiated with Duke Power for our little neighborhood that we took out the street lights that they had and we substituted the new ones. We saved 2/3 of our electric bill by talking to them. So I'm not sure why your bills are as high as they are, because you can actually talk to the Public Service Commission and deal with Duke representatives, and you can cut a lot of those expenses. It seems like you have people here that are all about spending money. I don't think you have a lot of problem solvers. And you have community full of experts here tonight, as well as in the community. You could ask for volunteers to get involved in that. I did that in my community. I've done that in other HOAs, and we've been able to reduce budgets in a time when you should be exercising fiscal responsibility, fiscal integrity, and not just looking for a way to get to a number that some commission that was paid to come up with a number gets to. I bet you if you give that to me, I'm going to find the errors, and I invite you to do so. And that's all my time tonight. Thank you.
Tom Bagnini.
Dr. Tom Vagnini, 1214 Jaguar Court. Actually, I've been in contact with Terry Pavona regarding this meeting, and I was a member of the board with Mary Brook and Mr. Gilmore, and have been on the board ever since until 2 years ago when I got timed out because you could only stay so many years and lose so much hair. And so I was chairman of the committee for 10 years. And Ms. Pavona came on, and I realized her skills with numbers and asked her, knowing that my time would be up anyway, to take the reins. And so I moved from your chair to your chair, and she took over. And so I'm very familiar with the history of this. I was good friends with Mary Brooks, who was a master gardener, got me into doing gardening, and I took those skills with me to the board, along with, used to be a retired captain in the U.S. Navy, and saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on budgeting, which got me to captain. And so I hear a lot about mismanagement, and I was tight, okay? The first night I was chairman, I saw on the list of expenditures a tree for $8,000. And I go, why are we spending $8,000 on a tree? Well, whatever residence it was a while ago, wanted a tree to replace the big tree that was there because they thought it was part of the landscaping. And right then and there, I made the announcement, no more, okay? Nickel and dime. I remember debating, someone mentioned changing the flowers, debating to spending $400 on changing the flowers at the end of the entrance, in the median. And so there's a mention of the pool that hasn't been working. The casements for the pumps, which is cured now on the south side, they're underwater, okay? And I walked over there and I see rotted wood. This is over like 12, 14 years, and replacing this stuff. But you can't fight gravity. These things are underground, the water leaks in, and it's another $5,000, and there's 2 of them. And so when we're getting them fixed or getting replaced, the pounds are down. Finally, with Kevin Maddox, we bought a backup pump.
Captain, we need to wrap it up. Captain?
What's that?
We need to, your time is up. We just need you to bring it to a close.
Okay. If you look at the budget, if I'm representing the board, could you give me 5?
Well, you're not any longer on the board.
Oh, I was Terry.
So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
There's a line.
Do me a favor. Will you just, one thing that we do need you to do, be very clear. Are you in support of or are you
Oh, I'm in
against?
support of.
Okay.
The line, if you look at the line of expenditures for the grounds, okay, they're pretty steady. okay? Everything else has gone up. That's what TOB does, is the grounds. And so if anybody wants the height lowered around the corner, we had a guy with a sports car getting out of the country club, couldn't see over the meeting because he's so low. He came to the board and we cut it down.
Captain, we need to wrap it up.
Aye, aye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service.
If anybody wants to talk to me after this about
Allison White.
Hi, my name's Allie, and I am a resident of my whole 42 years of my life. I feel like, I don't know, maybe someone's younger than I am, but I feel like, you know. I was born and raised here, and then I moved to the ranch lands and back to Tuscaloosa, and I hope that my 3 kids are the future of Tuscaloosa as well. I'm a proud resident of Winter Springs, and I assume that everybody in this room is passionate about the city, or they wouldn't be here because they don't care. They wouldn't care. And I just think that we're here talking about the increase, which unfortunately, you sitting right here didn't cause the problem. The problem was we didn't have a growth or an increase previously, so we are here now. And unfortunately, it's in your hands to have to be the ones to address the increase, which I feel is necessary. We need to rip the Band-Aid off. We need to make the increase and then slowly make an increase so we're not in the same situation that we're in now. And I feel that Tuscaloosa, all of the fountains, the walls, all of it is important. It's what makes Tuscaloosa. If I don't know that anybody would be happy, maybe they would be happy without a fountain or happy without a sign, but it does add value to the homes in Tuscaloosa. And I live on Tuscarora, and I know that the reserve, that beautiful area that she was mentioning that they take care of, is gorgeous. And I know that if she needs help or anybody, I don't know why she would get denied trying to offer to, spruce that area up. But I feel like, whatever the situation was, I think that we need to try to keep it the way that, we need to keep it up. And I am all for the increase. Okay.
Thank you. Very fair. Elaine Connors. Good evening.
Hey. Hi, I'm Elaine Connors at 1121 Pheasant Circle, and I am in the majority of not doubling our taxes for this improvement, only because the fountains don't work half the time. It just seems like such a waste. Like we could put a tree up or something. I do like the Tuscaloosa signs. The little beautification would be nice. But spending the money on the fountains is just going to increase every year, and they're just going to want more money. So that's where I stand, and that's just my opinion. I want everybody to know it. Thanks.
Richard Williams. Sorry that you ended up being last after waiting on that time. Thanks.
Okay.
On the blue forms. Yeah.
Well, pays the
Got you
same.
First and then last. Thank you. Thanks for.
My name is Richard Williams. I've been a Tuscaloosa resident for 15 years, and I got a couple of items that have already been covered. The 100% increase, I think what we're suffering from is sticker shock. I think if this were incremented at 20, 25%, people would be happy with it. See how it turns out. If it turns out okay, fine. If it's surplus, that's even better. But the spending piece of it is important. You've got to prioritize what is in need of a permanent fix, a quick fix, or no fix. And I know maintenance is required to keep anything going. So we have to do it, but like I said, sticker shock, too much money. And if there's an opportunity to revisit it in the next year or 2 years, if it does go through, maybe it can go down. Sometimes taxes do go down. Thank you.
Yeah, right? Yeah, yeah.
How does he get full
Yeah.
for me?
Okay, anyone else that would like to, okay. We're good.
I'm Linda Freeburn, I'm a resident. I never turn them in because I'm not really sure if anyone's going to cover what I want to say, and I don't want to be repetitive. So hold on to your seats. I'm for increasing the cap. Maybe not necessarily, we've already spent the money on the rate study and just increase the cap. I don't know about increasing it, the assessment 100% right away, but I do have some questions. We employ NBS Government Financial, and what Holly said at the beginning, it made it sound like we had just contacted them in order to do the rate study, but that's not true. They've been with us since 2009, and I think we pay them in the neighborhood of $12,000 a year. I'm just not sure what for. So this is a company that's based in Temecula, California, and I think what they're supposed to do is help us abide by Florida state law. I find it odd that we went all the way to California to find somebody to help us. So maybe that's something that can be reevaluated. In the current budget, there is there's something under, and I have it written all over the place. There's a $262,000 expense in this current fiscal year for construction and machinery. I don't know what that's for either. And then the North Fountain, there was an estimate that it was going to cost us $167,000 or $176,000, but that is not included in the new numbers. So I don't know what happened to that. So now for the thing that I have that's different, I'm not real crazy about the fountains. I think they make us look dated. They're at one entrance to Tuscaloosa. The entrance that I use is next to the Speedway. So I get a totally different view, right? My husband and I came back from dinner the other night, and it was dark, so there were no lights on the fountains, so you really couldn't see them till you were right there, but they were, you know, the water was going everywhere. I'm not sure whether or not we can look at replacing them. I'm a Floridian. I love Florida. I love Florida plants. There's a guy that posts on Facebook. I don't know if anyone's seen him. He goes on hikes every morning with his dog, Sir Winston. Takes the most beautiful pictures. Florida plants are beautiful. They require less maintenance. If you get rid of that hardscape, the entrance is still going to be beautiful, and you eliminate the expense. Your insurance will probably go down too. So I don't know if I'm in the majority there, but.
Yeah. Anyone else that did not previously? Ma'am?
I apologize. I was here last night and spoke, and I thought I made it clear I wanted to speak again. But my name is Nancy Vale, and I live in Country Club Village, and I am against the increase. I probably wouldn't be so against it if it was a minor increase or if it was a gradual increase. But I go back to the time when this was originally suggested in 1999. And I was with two men in my neighborhood who fought this tax, which is a tax on our homeowners in Tuscaloosa. And it's charging us from the city. The city is charging us the tax. So we took this issue to the to the lower courts, and the lower district courts all said no, there's no value. A city cannot charge a homeowner's subdivision. And then they took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, okay, so that's how you've got your tax, everybody. I just think the assessment should be explained more. I just had a meeting with Sarah, and she helped me understand a lot of issues. I just have a problem. I think if you all would send out some printed information before this evening and let everybody know what the costs are, what the increases are, what you're taking the money for. I think our fountains make a big difference in our subdivision. I think they're very important. And not just to homeowners. I think anybody passing by notices it. And people will say to me, oh, you live there by those big fountains. It's beautiful. So I do think that's very important to maintain those. But I think if we're collecting $1.150 million a year in these taxes, I really think the money could be spent more wisely. I think we should consider that everything in Tuscaloosa is really an asset. And it should be defined and it should be declared, and everybody should understand what the cost is to maintain. This discussion about the flowers versus Florida foliage, it just needs to be maintained. I've suggested that the garden clubs each take a section of the median and post their sign and say it's the garden club for Country Club Village, whatever. And we're taking care of it. And I just think that there are simpler ways to handle these problems than to say we're going to double it, and if you don't agree, then you're controversial. And I feel the same way everybody else does about Tuscaloosa. I think it's wonderful. I just think if there was more explanation, I was totally lost when your financial director was talking about, Kristen, you couldn't read what was on the screen. So if you sent that out, an explanation, and it doesn't have to be a line item, but if it was just a declaration as to what her department alone costs us, and if we understood it, I think you'd be in a much better position. And I'm not representing a homeowners, and I'm not representing any group of people, but I just remember back in 1999 what happened.
We need you to wrap it up.
And it is very near and dear to my heart.
Thank you. I appreciate your voice. Okay. Mr. Greenberg.
Good evening. Ken Greenberg, Winter Springs Community Association. Got it. Clearly, I, along with our association, are firmly against a tax increase. We have watched our water, our wastewater, our sewer, our garbage be doubled. We are now looking at this tax hitting us. Now, lest we not forget, we're at the end of the fiscal year, and there's still money left in that account, approximately $56,000, unless the numbers provided by the city are incorrect. So it's not like we ran out of money. This is not the time to start raising taxes like this or getting crazy. As far as I'm concerned, the property we're talking about is city property. The Tuscaloosa, first off, I was the 3-time chairman of the Tuscaloosa Lighting and Beautification District. I was the 2-time chairman of Parks and Recreation, and I served as a city commissioner. So I think I kind of understand the system, and I know that most of you have already made up your mind what you're going to do. That said, to raise the taxes at this point, and if you raise it to the ceiling, we know damn well, even if you don't raise it all the way, you will raise it next year or the year after. So I've never seen a tax go down. I've never seen the toll, for the most part, get eliminated, even though they're supposed to go away after the road has been paid for. I know it's not going to change. And I also know that I drove down Winter Springs Boulevard. I haven't seen a damn flower on that median in the longest time. Those fountains are working halfway, and if Holly is correct, they never will, because if they run them at full capacity like they used to be running, they're afraid it's going to break. So either A, we live with it like that. And I happen to like fountains, but I think I like Xeriscape better. And I know Commissioner Bruce, has put out pieces on that. Maybe we should start looking at some Xeriscape down the medians. Maybe we should look at Xeriscape in the front ends. It's still lush, still beautiful, still workable, a bit more cost affordable. Because, to double people's taxes, I know everyone thinks Tuscaloosa, therefore you're rich, and therefore you can afford it, and what the hell is another $125, $150? But it's still money. It's on top of everything else. It's on top of my water bill, or everyone's water bill, that's gone from $100 to $200 and going up. We've only had 2.5 of the raises, so it's going to probably go up an average water bill to be about $350, which will probably be more than the electric bill. So now is not the time. If you listen to what Miss Holly Queen spoke, everything's still going to get done if you didn't raise it at all. The grass is still going to get mowed. The water's still going to run. Everything's still going to get done. They're talking about $500,000 for monuments. I mean, come on, seriously.
You don't think we can spend or save $500,000? You're raising the arbor fee by $500,000, and it's primarily to cut down trees, as public records shown. So Kate, I agree with what you're saying, but you can look at the budget. And the bottom line is you should be able to find money to help maintain Tuscarora out of other parts of the budget. You had a chance to claw back the budget last night. You did not do it. You know, we got 2 votes, and there was only 1 more vote that was needed, and you could have rolled it back because you got 9.8% more money coming in that we know of, and it may probably be more when the state is done. There is money to do this. You don't have to keep pounding the residents. We took a survey, and in 24 hours, over 4,000 people had, well, actually within 5 hours, 4,000 people opened it, and 700 plus people voted no, we do not want an increase. No. And 75% of those 700 and approximately 50 people live in Tuscarora. So if you want to listen to the people, if you want to listen to your voters, if you want to listen to what's going on, people don't want it. And I strongly urge you not to put the cap to where you're asking, because we know damn well what's going to happen. It's going to go up. If not this year, next year. You know, there's a time for projects, there's a time for improvements, there's time for things. Right now, it's a time to maintain and perhaps improve what we got with what we're using, which isn't being done properly to start. And I can't blame the TLBD because they're an advisory committee. They're not the ones doing the work. The city comes in, makes their recommendation, they shake their head, yes. You know, some committees are a little stronger than others. Perhaps this is. I don't know. But I do know it is not the time, and the vast majority of the residents do not want it, and I think it's time to stop this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, then I have 2 letters that I was asked to read into the record. One's very short, and then the other is a little bit longer, from the chair of the Tuscarora Lighting and Beautification District Advisory Committee. So first is from Karen Owens. It says, Dear Mr. Mayor, I would like to express my support for the increase in the assessment for our neighborhood. I feel this is a fair and reasonable increase in light of the current assessment that has been in place for 18 years. We love our beautiful neighborhood and appreciate all the city's efforts that continue to make Winter Springs, Tuscarora, a fabulous place to live. Thank you for all you do. Sincerely, Karen Owens. This is from Terry Bavona, who is, I believe, was Mr. Greenberg's appointment to the TLBD, if I'm not mistaken. And her email is, I will unfortunately be out of town on business Tuesday, September 9th, and will not be able to attend. As you are aware, I put together a presentation at the last TLBD meeting, August 27th, outlining the issues our committee has been facing. To recap, we have no reserves. The TLBD community beautification is not up to standards. Our maintenance contracts have been cut to minimums, and we're operating on a 16-plus-year-old assessment that has reached its maximum. As outlined in my presentation, the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, from 2009 through 2025 for those same bucket of services has gone up 51%, and labor costs have gone up 94%. These will continue to increase, which has put extreme pressure on the operating budget. Over 70% of our budget is fixed costs, which we have no control over pricing increases, i.e. utilities, lighting, insurance, legal, and administrative support. As chairperson of the TLBD committee and with full support of our committee members, we strongly suggest that the commissioners review the presentation and the NBS proposal, make an investment in the TLB district and our community. I appreciate all of the support. Terry Bavona. That's great. Is there, can I make one last point that we missed somewhere along the way? And then this is, again, not attempting to influence, but just a statistical fact. The rates for this assessment have historically been coming down. In other words, as the bond's been paid off. Right now, the median is about $128. Some pay $36 extra, some pay $29 less than that amount. 7 years ago, that median was $185. As the bonds have been paid off, so 7 years ago, we all paid 180, give or take. So those numbers have been changing, but they've been coming down, not going up in many other ways. So it's just something to consider. And with that, is there any further discussion? Okay.
All right, so, thank you, everybody, for speaking and coming to the dais. So, approximately 25 people spoke. There's more than 25 people here, right? Simple math. If we look at the world of politics, this, for me, as somebody who likes numbers, was very interesting. In this room of people who spoke, 11 people spoke in favor, 7 people spoke against, and 7 said, raise the cap, but raise it incrementally. So realistically, we're a split city, statistically speaking, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So nobody really knows what they want if we look at the whole of Tuscaloosa as a whole. You guys are split. What I did get from this, one gentleman said he wants to be able to trust those decisions that are being made and have accountability for what we are doing. Gentleman from the left-hand side. I agree with him completely, and I think it's fair to make that statement. You have to know what we're doing. And I think, appreciate it, I think the importance of this meeting is just that. What happened to our city is, by what I used the term earlier, was deferred maintenance. We did not do what was right to be in the right place today. So as the last gentleman that was speaking, Mr. Greenberg, said, time for projects and a time to stay, know the difference. Since this dais got here, this city manager got here, this city staff team got here, we're having to fix approximately 6 years of deferred maintenance, if not longer, which means there's 6 years of deferred costs that we're having to fix. That's why we are having these hard, horrible conversations. Horrible is not the right word, but tough conversations. Right? I don't know where everybody else is going to go. The other thing that I heard from 9 of you was to get rid of the fountains. I don't know if that's realistic. I don't know what that conversation is. But over everything, that seemed to be the sticking point, was the fountains, the fountains, the fountains, the fountains. The cost of the fountains, issues like that. So for those of you who saw me writing, those are kind of the reasons I was writing. Maybe that's our conversation up here, is what to do with the fountains in the future. Maybe not today, but in the future. Because that seemed to be the only consistency that kept coming out. Right? So I don't specifically have a point. I wanted to share everything that I was hearing from everybody, and sort of what I'm taking from this is we have to figure something. I don't know what the something specifically is, but as a community, I don't think there's a definitive everybody knows. I'll leave it at that for us to have more discussion.
Yeah, we won't please everybody, that's for sure. Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to express a couple points and offer a different solution. And I think that there's a way we can kind of do a few things at the same time. The first thing is, let me start with what I'm not going to do, which is blame past administrations, blame the last 20, 30, 50 years of the city, 100 years, doesn't really matter how long. We're at a point we need to look forward. So we need to take this vote for the future, not what's expedient today or, sins of the past. When I looked at this, and I think that, we all got probably incessant amounts of phone calls, emails, and texts and everything else about this topic. The most important thing was, I think a lot of the folks that are in favor of a tax already know not to lobby me because of my usual positions, but I wanted to take this kind of open-minded approach because, not being a resident of Tuscaloosa, we all live in different districts throughout the city. We're elected citywide. My district is Southwest Winter Springs. So I don't have, like, I'm not making this payment. So when I fought the water tax, you have to understand that in my district, the average water bill is $30. Therefore, a $5 increase is a higher percentage. There were folks who couldn't understand the difference between percent and percent change. Therefore, they fought me on percent change because they've never seen that delta before, I guess. It is what it is. When I looked at this, I kind of took a SWOT analysis approach to it. Those of you that know what that approach is, you look at the strengths, you look at the weaknesses, you look at what the opportunities are, and then you look at what the threats are in the future. There are geopolitical threats to the economy. There are national domestic threats to the economy. There are state threats to the economy. And obviously, there are, at the county level and local level, threats to the economy that have to be looked at. I would ask my colleagues, which I know everyone is going to be very thoughtful in this process just because of we have a full room, so obviously this is important. We got to emphasize compassion, look at a sense of civic pride, but then also look at the financial transparency. And, you know, point number 3 there on the financial transparency, I think you guys know from the campaign and from now, is kind of the topic that animates me the most, not only professionally, but obviously in this role as a commissioner. You know, as we assess the upcoming proposal to nearly double a tax, it is a specific tax to a specific sector of the community. It was put there by referendum, therefore it is there, it was voted upon by those folks. It is not assessed to the rest of the city. But, you know, it's essential that we as a city consider not only the financial needs of that district, that taxing district in particular, but also fairness, civic engagement, property rights, kind of, and take that as a guide to governance. So the problems with the current approach that I think that the city is taking is that obviously, you know, not to be too obvious, the current tax is compulsory. Okay, so regardless of a resident's personal benefit or financial situation, they're going to be required to pay. And if they don't pay, their property's at risk. So that's what the argument in the property tax argument is generally statewide right now. There are some residents that wrote and called that said that they receive little benefit from that tax, even though they live in Tuscaloosa. Others may receive an outsized benefit to that tax. Some disagree with certain priorities, and we heard tonight some would pay the increased amount, you know, cheerfully. Others are against it. But keep in mind, you could be against the tax. If it passes, you're going to have to pay for it whether you like it or not. So that's where the compulsory nature of it is. Doubling the tax without exploring any alternatives by the city is a blunt approach, okay? It disproportionately burdens some residents, and it doesn't account for the varying financial abilities or preferences of all the residents. So I'm going to propose an alternative, okay? So let's start with the basics. Let's actually repeal the tax district, okay? If we do nothing tonight, we bring this back up, we can actually go ahead as a body, have the debate to actually repeal the tax district altogether and create a voluntary beautification fund. Why voluntary? Well, if you dissolve the compulsory Tuscaloosa Beautification Lighting District tax and you establish a voluntary fund, it's going to allow the residents and the organizations in the city to contribute according to their recognition of benefit to their financial means, but at the same time, now they will be able to use their First Amendment rights to advocate for or against the collection of that money. It's transparent. There'll be justified funding requests. The city should identify every single project, every operational need that the district would have, and actually not only what is traditionally funded, but what else is wanting to be done in this giant spreadsheet of wish lists. Provide a clear written explanation, and my suggestion would be a link to the financial details online where everyone can go, see them clearly, and in fact, have the city put together a position paper why they believe that increase is necessary at that time. Why every project would be necessary, what value it brings to the community, and exactly how much funding is needed for that project in particular. That's going to add layers of transparency. When the city publishes a minimum suggested contribution to the voluntary fund, everybody would know, hey, this is what we need to collect minimum to get these projects done. And then a second figure can be suggested with additional funding. There are going to be some folks that have better means, and they may want to contribute more to this fund. There are some folks that this year may not be able to contribute, but next year can contribute double the amount, let's say. So what happens is by making it voluntary, you actually collect more because now you are engaging the community civically into, you know, basically all the stakeholders have a reason to get involved. And look, you know what, I'll tell you what one of the things that I thought about, because the THOA, I know Dr. Meyerke personally, you know, I'm a fan of THOA. I love the fact that it's completely voluntary, because if you want to join, you join. Great picnics every summer. I highly recommend them. I went before I was a commissioner. I've gone after I've been a commissioner. They put together a great program. And guess what? They provide a service to the community. You get your magazine, you get all the communication, but it's voluntary. Residents, HOAs, businesses, civic groups, we've had multiple HOAs and multiple civic groups speak tonight, would be encouraged to publicly advocate for their position, okay? That would be, you want a higher contribution, you want a lower contribution, here's what it is, make your case and collect it. I could tell you that if it was voluntary, chances are very good. We know in Winter Springs, we're not, you know, we definitely don't shy away from our First Amendment right to, you know, yell into the bullhorn what we think of different things. So, you know, this would not be any different. Right now, it's tied to your property taxes. If you don't pay it, again, compulsory, you're going to lose your property if you don't pay your property taxes. A tax deed is going to be sold by the county. The city is still going to get its money, but the county will sell your tax deed. 3 tax deeds later, you're going to lose your property. If you create a flexible payment system, some folks might not be able to pay a few $100s a year, but they might be able to pay $20 a month. You might have somebody now says, you know what, I'd like to contribute to this fund, $20 a month. And now you've collected $240 from, you know, voluntarily from that fund. So automatic payments, using digital platforms, making it easy for the folks to do it voluntarily. You reduce the risk to the property owners because obviously by making these contributions voluntary, they're not linked to the tax roll. No resident would be at risk of losing their home or incurring liens due to non-payment. And obviously, if you have a financial distress, that year you may not necessarily contribute, but the following year you may contribute more. Why is this a better model? So in advocating for my proposal.
Actually, a point of order, if I can.
No, Mr. Mayor, you advocate from the chair, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to complete my thought.
I'd like
you
to
advocate from the chair. Please don't interrupt me. Mr.
trying to-
Mayor, objection. You are advocating from the chair. I have the floor.
By rule,
Is
you
there
have
anyone
5
else?
minutes. You've exceeded that by 3.
No,
Let
10.
note.
Well, of course, the pro-tax group is always going to try to shut down the anti-tax
Commissioner
group.
Diaz, you have by rule
That is
5
exactly
minutes.
what has been happening in this city for the since I got
Stop.
elected.
Wait,
No, Mr. Deputy
You're out of
Mayor,
order.
I'd like to wrap up my thought. Considering I'm probably only going to be, I'm 50% probably of this argument, and I may only be 20% of the board, but I'm probably 50% of this argument. I should deserve 50% of the time if that was the case. And I think the residents here deserve a better idea than what you're proposing, which is a tax increase, which is what you've been doing every turn, at least since I've known you.
You can make the point. I mean,
We're just asking you to make
model-
a point, we can come back to you, and you can have another round, you can have another 10 minutes if you want.
Let me finish the point.
We're now at 12.
Well, Mr. Mayor, you're the one who's wasting the time. We need to have a system that is more just than what we are doing now. We did this with the water tax. We're doing it now with this tax, and it's a smaller thing. And what the government does is they tell you, well, it's just a little bit. It's just a little bit. Well, a little bit always keeps on adding up. this is a more accountable system. The one thing that I campaigned on, okay, so now we are going to make this a campaign thing. The one thing I campaigned on was having strong internal controls and fiscal accountability, and that is still something we do not have in this city because we do not have a transparent, fiscally accountable system in the city. I'm proposing a system that is going to be engaging civically the residents instead of by basically, at this point, gun point, to have to pay an additional tax. It is less adversarial than what we are doing now because we don't have to divide the city. The deputy mayor even said, oh, we're a divided city. No, we're not a divided city. We agree that we want to keep the city beautiful. We agree that we love the city. We agree that it should go, always, in a good direction. What we may not agree on is that we have to constantly be raising taxes to do it. The safeguards to property are extremely important for the homeowners, and it should be important for this body as well. So I look forward to lively debate, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Caruso.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to touch on something that Commissioner Diaz said. I lived on the west side for 17 years, and I wish I would have seen a $35 water bill. I think it started out for me at like $50, and then it went up from there. I'm not saying you're right or wrong, I'm just saying what I wish I had. Huh?
Well, he's in the ranch land, so they're on well and septic. They don't get the services, so they don't have to pay as much for it.
Okay.
That's the difference.
That's fair.
Big difference.
That's fair.
Yeah.
$35 bill would have been amazing.
Nice, huh?
Two things for the city manager. In regards to the landscaping for the THOA, what is their responsibility, what they actually pay for the landscaping? If you can give me a quick breakdown of what they actually pay for, if you know. Them, the fee that we're talking about today.
TLBD.
There you go. Sorry. To be clear.
Brian, I'll defer that to Brian. He'll have more, he has the specifics on the breakdown.
Yes, if you could, Brian, just tell me what it actually is that they get for.
One of our items is a picture.
Yeah.
Where's the picture of?
Actually, Mr. Sweet, you did actually specifically read off a list. Can you read off that list again? 2.5 miles of Winter Springs Boulevard, the 30.
The specific, as far as just a generalized overview, is the seven monument signs, 23 landscape medians, about 15 acres of heavily landscaped area. There's the 57,000 gallon water features, so the 2 fountains, 2 lighted flag poles, and about 123 decorative street signs, as well as stop sign poles that are maintained.
Okay, and that's what this fee is about, that's what they pay for?
Correct.
Okay. So with the landscape contract for Nature's Care, what is their responsibility down Winter Springs Boulevard? Because they're there, almost every day in the contract.
I don't have the contract in front of me, but generally speaking, the scope of services would include mowing, edging, weeding, trimming of hedges, typical landscaping services that are included in those types of services, debris removal. It would be listed in typically Exhibit A or B of that service agreement.
So the point I'm making is, how do we differentiate what they're doing in the city contract as opposed to what they're paying for in this fee?
The scope of service for landscaping in TLBD includes more hands-on. You have more shrubbery in the medians than other areas of the city. There's going to be more pruning involved on some of those areas. So that would include that maintenance of the enhanced landscaping that's currently installed.
I think everybody understands where I'm going with this, and I think there's a lot of confusion, and I don't think there's real clarity on what it is that the city actually pays for, what you are actually paying for, and now you're paying it twice possibly that we don't know about. And I don't know myself because there's a lot in that contract that is, together. We could be doing everything that you guys have to get done that you're paying for in the city contract. If you understand what I'm saying?
But the contract spelled out different regions. Sorry, Brian.
There's a point of clarification. Keep in mind, they're touching areas that are landscaped that without the installation of those areas, for example, the monument features, right? If those areas did not exist, because they were never invested in initially, then their services would not be required in those locations. But the mere existence of those enhancements on the collector roads, Vista Villa, Tuscarora, Winter Springs Boulevard, east and west, those are their mere existence, require an increased level of service that if those features weren't there, you wouldn't have the need to have as robust services from a contractor.
Okay, second question. Who owns the fountains?
The fountains are city assets. They're on an easement that is a city easement in the city's name. The property is owned by the THOA, but there was an easement agreement executed several years ago during their construction, is my understanding. I don't know if Anthony can confirm that, but that's my understanding.
I mean, I bring it up because someone brought it up. I don't remember who it was. They made a great point on the ownership of the fountains and the responsibility, where that responsibility should lie on the ownership. If we can get some clarity on that.
When the assessment district was created, the Tuscarora Homeowners Association conveyed a perpetual easement to the city of Winter Springs. Under the easement, the city of Winter Springs committed to build and maintain the fountain improvements in perpetuity. And the agreement says in the event that they don't, and the Tuscarora Homeowners Association does the maintenance, then Tuscarora Homeowners Association would be reimbursed for those costs. So the maintenance obligation, as Brian indicated, lies with the city.
The maintenance of the water fountains.
The fountains, the landscaping,
Okay.
all the plantings.
So when you say lies with the city, is that
the city's obligation to
not
maintain?
them, what we're discussing tonight, or yes, them?
No, it's on the city to maintain all of the fountains and the wall and all the landscaping within the entrance on Tuscarora Road.
Within the TLBD, not the
is-
Tuscarora Homeowners Association. I think that's the confusion Mark might be having.
Well, the problem is that THOA actually owns the land. But we are taking care, when I say we, the city is taking care of all the maintenance. And that's a little fuzzy. And I think that's what Mark is asking. Why does THOA own the land, but we are maintaining all the facilities? And how is that, why is that kosher?
Well, it's very kosher and it's very legal. I mean, the Tuscarora Homeowners Association, I don't know how they own the land, but they've owned the land for a long, long time. And when the assessment district was being created and this idea of having fountains and a decorative entrance on Tuscarora as part of the TLBD assessment district, the Tuscarora Homeowners Association voluntarily agreed to convey an easement to the city so the city could build the improvements there for the TLBD. And the city maintains those improvements. That was
Within the
that's part of the
contract with the TLBD.
So how about this for a comparison, or maybe, so on 434, wherever there are wide open medians and things throughout the city, whether it's a state road or a county road, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just kind of in the ballpark. The county, for example, owns Tuscarora Road, but the city wants a little higher level of service. So the city then steps in and creates a little higher. The residents of Tuscarora came to the city and requested the city provide a higher level of service. Under a referendum, they voted an increased voluntary tax because the THOA wasn't able to handle it, manage all that, giving it back to them right now. I don't know who would handle that. That's a massive contract to go back and the neighborhood take it back over voluntarily or not. They would take it back. This bottom line is the city was in a position to do it. Whether it was right or wrong can be determined by the commission, but the residents voted for overwhelmingly a self-imposed tax to take care of this. Do we continue? There's a question.
I'm good.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah. So I think in all of this, I've heard from the residents, heard a lot of you call me. Nobody else has made a pass forward for this, so I'm gonna try something. The idea is, first steps, as Holly mentioned earlier, to raise the cap by request. So I can foresee raising the cap by request to the amount asked, but then in that, the dollar amounts, I would not want to raise it to the cap. Let me finish, please, if I may. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would say we look at this perhaps 1 year at a time. Start with $10, see what that takes us. Others might have a different number, but that would be where I would say to start.
What I was going to say, and I apologize
No, go
for
ahead.
interrupting you. Should we, and this is just open to discussion, can we handle this as two different things? Can we just make a motion to approve the cap or not, or set an amount, and then we'll come back to what is that amount we're going to set?
Holly?
So the way it's written right now is one resolution,
Yes.
but we can discuss it separately if you'd like.
Yes.
Yes.
So then I would make that motion from the seat to increase it to the cap with no dollar amount.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Deputy Mayor
Is the
Resnick.
motion for discussion?
Oh, we
To discuss the cap or to pass the cap?
Well, my motion is to increase the amount
Of the cap.
of the cap, just the cap portion, to its capacity by request.
But that does not,
But no dollar amount. There's no dollars attached to that.
that means that we're not raising the fee. We're just, so that we don't have to
cap.
spend $18,000 on another study next year or the year after. We're just going to raise the cap now without raising the fee. That's all we're talking about right now. Then we're going to come back to the fee. Okay? So the motion was made by the Deputy Mayor Resnick, seconded by Commissioner Baker.
We only have one resolution on the agenda. We don't have two. Now you're voting on two different items. We can discuss two different items. We don't vote on two different items.
No, yeah,
This is a trick to try to raise taxes. That's really
It is
what
not.
That's okay. Let Anthony respond.
I mean, it's Commission's prerogative on what it wants to do. You have to vote on the resolution. The resolution has to include whatever the max cap is that the Commission wants to establish and the rate for the TLBD. So ultimately, you have to do the resolution. If you want to take the cap up first in your discussion and get an understanding between the commissioners, then that's fine, and then take up the rate. And then, but at the end of the day, you have to have a motion on the resolution on all the components, the max cap, the maintenance rate, and then you have, the $36?
Yeah, a roll for the capital portion.
The capital,
It's not changing.
that doesn't change from previous years, because there's indebtedness that has to be paid back, so.
So we can move forward with just.
You're basically
We can bring a
discussing.
consensus on the cap.
Consensus
Yes.
is fine, because again, you have to vote on a resolution at the end of the day.
Okay. So the motion's been made, it's been seconded on the consensus, so that everybody can go on record. Christian, would you,
I don't think we need a
or
motion.
consent?
There's
You don't, you don't need to go on the roll if you want to get,
We have to take the motion off the table.
I mean, you can't, I mean, if you want to do the roll, I mean, it's prefatory towards drafting, actually approving the resolution, so, I mean, you can do the roll if you want.
It would improve the record, it would
Yeah,
improve the role.
That's
Christian.
fine, whatever the commission wants to do.
On a motion, and this is just so it's clear, on a motion from Deputy Mayor Resnick to increase the cap for the Tuscaloosa Lighting Beautification District, or Tuscaloosa Assessment Area, to $255.20, right? Seconded by Commissioner Baker. Okay. Commissioner Diaz.
Absolutely not.
Commissioner Bruce.
No.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso.
No.
Okay. Is there another motion?
Aye.
So then what motion would,
Oh, Commissioner Diaz had
oh, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we table this item to have further discussion on the actual abolition of the taxing district altogether and making it a voluntary fund to collect even more money than what we are compulsory asking the residents to do.
Well, first, I'm going to ask a technical question. We have a budget to approve. We're not really in a position to table for another, we can have that discussion later, but currently, the discussion is up or down. We need to make that decision so we can pass the budget. That budget timeline that's why this meeting is being held today and not yesterday or not next week. It has to be done today. We need to finalize our budget. Is that correct?
The tax roll has to go to the tax collector by September 15th, which is next Monday.
Okay, so we need to resolve what we're doing with this so that we can meet our legal obligations on a budget.
However, one second. However, the notice has happened for the public hearing item for today. There will not be any time for additional notice period. Commissioner.
Okay.
Point of clarification, in the current budget, we have a budgeted amount for TLBD, which is the current tax rate, correct?
So right now, the tentative budget has it doubled, but it can be adjusted down to whatever the commission decides today, which is what would happen. The details that have to go on the tax roll or where the timeline is, it has to go to the tax collector by September 15th.
Yep. So my motion is status quo, so we can go ahead and actually look at making this a significantly more robust fund by making it voluntary. So my motion is that we have status quo based on what the current taxing district is.
So just to clarify, not raising the cap at all.
Not raising the
Motion
cap
is
and
to
not raising the
abolish
tax.
the TLB.
No. His motion is to not raise the cap.
Status quo.
Correct. Okay, is there a second? Okay. Failing a second, that motion dies.
What number would people want to?
What number of
I
the
would like to
cap?
make a motion.
Then please.
As a resident of Tuscarora, I would like to make a motion that we approve the cap at, what is it, $255.20, and increase the rate by 50% with an additional 25 over the next 2 years to reach the full cap.
Okay, so.
Can I just,
Yeah.
okay. So motion to raise the cap to 255, and then when you're stating 50%, are you saying 50?
To 192,
Okay,
and then the remaining amount over 2 years.
okay.
Okay, so there is a motion. Is there a second for that motion?
Not at that amount.
Okay. If there's not a second on that, then that motion dies, and we're going to bring it back around. So what, yeah, thank you, Commissioner Bruce.
May I make a motion? I move to authorize the increase of the cap to $200 for the annual Tuscarora maintenance assessment.
Okay, so the cap, and then what about the regular?
And then the assessment for 2025, 2026 would be at $178, which would be a $50 increase.
Commissioner, the only, and I hear you, the cap, then when we reach the $200 range, we would have to do another study.
18,000.
So
That's
that would
correct.
be another 18,000+, whatever.
If we
cuts
need it,
in.
yes.
Another 20,000.
Unless we abolish the district, we don't have to do any more rate studies and pay more consultants, which is what our city's known for, consultants for reports about reports.
Okay, there's a.
Let's address multiple issues at the same time.
We have a motion, just want to clarify. So with the deputy mayor's comment about the study, would you like to keep your motion as you stated, or would you
Yes,
like to
sir.
make it? Keep it as stated, and that motion is that we raise the cap to $200, but the fee is only raised to $178.
Correct.
Is there a second on that motion?
Not for that dollar amount.
Okay, that failed due to lack of a second. Okay, can I make a suggestion that, okay, we knew that raising the cap to 255 failed. And it sounds like the raising the cap to $200 failed because I'm getting the sense that it wasn't enough, just because they don't want to pay the $20,000, $18,000 for yet another study. If and I'll.
Can I
frankly
think I
just
know where you're
ask,
going
is
with
that-
this. So
Yeah.
the notices all went out. The highest it can go up to is the 255.20 for the cap, if that's the direction you were
No, that's
leading.
not-
Okay.
That's
all
not what I'm saying.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is I'm trying to read the dais. What it sounds to me as if it lost a second because the $200 cap was considered maybe not high enough by a couple of people. But maybe the 178, the second part of Commissioner Bruce's motion might be able to pass. Instead, one person said 200, another said the 255. Can we meet in the middle and say the cap of 230 or 225, and then the commissioner's suggestion of 178?
Can I
Yes.
try something?
Yeah.
To make a motion at the cap of 255.20 and then increase it to $150. That would be a $23 increase from where we're at now.
So the cap is raised, but the
Total
the
amount,
total amount at the end of the year, each homeowner would pay
$3 more,
$23 more.
or 22, sorry, bad math, $22 more.
Okay, that is a motion?
Yeah, it's a motion.
Okay, is there a second on that motion? Okay.
So it looks like we're kind of between, as I know Commissioner Baker was at 178.
Could I ask, could I ask, maybe make the same motion, but raise that amount to the 178 instead of, I think,
That
the
was her,
$23?
that was her motion.
Huh?
That was Commissioner Baker's motion.
No, I'm saying you raised the
was
cap to 225, I believe you said, or no,
said 150.
255. Maybe go to 255, but then say, raise it more than just $23.
See, that's the part where I'm having a tough time, because that's where I think people were kind of, give us a little bit of an incremental piece up till we can get there. At $20, $25, I think people can handle
At
that.
the end of the year, that's not per month, that's at the end of the year.
I don't
So
think it sets us up for an actual plan of doing anything. I don't think it funds the balance to actually do the projects that they're asking for.
Correct, $23 would do no work. We would only be building the reserves,
Yeah.
but no work would get done. No replanting, no painting of the lamp
I
posts,
think-
none of that.
Yeah, the reason I made mine the way I made it is because I think that the community was heard, that they want us to be more responsible with our spending and look at Xeriscape and other options, but this is all going to still cost a significant amount of money. So I'm more than happy to remove my 2 years post to that and only raise it by the 50% instead of 100%. And then we can reevaluate at later times if we still need to increase it after that. But I don't think that these minor dollar amounts are going to amount to anything, just cost of living, basically, for the city.
So if I am hearing the motion that you're making then is to raise to the cap of 255, so we're going to have to do the study, but only do a 50% increase.
Correct.
In the rate,
And ask-
not
and ask them
100.
to, yeah.
And that just goes for, that'll carry us this year alone.
Just
Okay.
this year alone.
That's a motion. Is there a second on that motion? She lowered the increase.
What's 50%? That would be-
It takes it to 192
So it's,
from 128.
yeah, so that raises it, whatever, $6 a month or whatever that works out to be. Okay.
No, it's $6 a month. Just-
Yeah, okay, so
It's
that,
$64
not,
It's a
Commissioner Baker?
$64 increase.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
No, the math part wasn't. So just from my side, I'm hearing you. I think we're the only one talking. If we were to do, and Holly, you can help me with with your side of it, right? If we were to do 25, 25, 25, 25 for those 4 years, would there be no fund balance? Would there be no kind of growth in that?
Or are you saying actually the
it's a
dollar
4-year
amount,
plan.
so increasing 25% each year?
$25. So first year 25, next year would be 50, the next year would be the 75, and the last year 4 would be where we would be sitting here right now. So
Well, wait,
If it
so
was a
if you're
4-year
talking
landscape.
dollars
But
and
you're
we're
talking about
talking
25%.
You're
that's
25% or $25?
25, so
Dollars.
$25, because we're looking,
No,
yeah, I'm saying
It's not,
25.
it would,
No, we're raising it
128 divided by
$128.
4.
No, no, I know, I'm just asking at a $25
so
rate.
after
you're not
4 years, we're
compounding.
still short 25%.
You're just looking at a
28.
fixed amount.
Yeah,
not
So,
compounding.
so if you increased it by $25 for next year, because you also have to bake into the discount. So in Florida, if you pay your property taxes in advance, you get a 4% discount. So the proceeds that the assessment district receives is net that discount. Most folks do pay it in advance because they want the discount. So raising it $25 for next year would give the fund an additional $105,000.
Were you talking $25 or 25%?
Dollars.
Okay, because if you just, the 100% and did $32 a year.
Well-
Yeah.
So
Or even if it's still hard $32, that would still just get us to 100 and.
So I would like to
18,000.
make one just point. So with the study and with the plan, it's with the board and everyone, these folks all put together who meet all year and deal with this all the time, was they had with the full, I'm not saying I'm for it, but I'm just saying for the full, if they raise to 255, the full thing right now, it's still a 4-year plan that they've mapped out with, and there actually are exactly which medians would come first and all that. There is a game plan, there is actually. But if we do $25 a year, we now make the improvements. It will take Tuscola 10 to 15 years to get back to the grandeur. I might suggest maybe a little more than 25. How about 25% per year? We're kind of negotiating. Instead of $25 per year, how about we improve it by 25%? At least then at the end of 4 years, we ramped it up slowly, taking in consideration folks on fixed incomes and things, but at the same time, we're protecting home values and maybe trying to meet somewhere in the middle.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I hope it's
There's no second right now.
in order. Anthony, this resolution deals only with this fiscal year. We can't set rates for future years, 25% future.
So, yeah,
No.
so basically the cap would be set until we do another study and we go through all these hoops, but then every single year, the commission has the ability to adjust the actual rate that is set.
But
It's an annual assessment.
correct.
So the commission can only set the assessment 1 year at a time.
Okay.
Well, you can have a plan that kind of maps out and.
That's what
and
I'm saying.
discuss that.
Correct.
But every year, the city commission has to establish
Approve it.
the assessment rate and approve the roll.
So we would be at the cap at 3 years, a 25% increase. Because that's exponential.
Well, that's an interesting point.
If we are just focusing on the cap for a minute, can we all agree on a number? I mean, can we discuss what, instead of, if it's not 255.20, could it be 220? Could we just talk about the cap? Where do we feel comfortable? Because
I feel comfortable at the 255.
I don't feel comfortable with the 255.20 cents. And the reason is because our residents don't have assurances that we won't just increase it to 255.20 in 2027. And from our track record, we probably would. So I feel to be fiscally responsible, we need to be sensitive to our cap, because whoever's up here next year will and shall increase it to the max. So we have to be very, very careful with that. So the cap needs to be sensitive, even though we're not going to charge it. It's just the ceiling, but the ceiling is there, and we have to be very, very cautious on that amount.
Commissioner Diaz.
And I echo what Commissioner Bruce is saying, and I just remind everyone that Congress constantly has to pass a new debt ceiling, because mysteriously they give a new amount and then they reach it and then they break it, and now we're $37 trillion in debt at the federal government. My solution challenges the civic pride of our community. It does not raise taxes. It keeps the status quo. So we didn't cut the taxes. We're keeping the status quo. Let's have the residents step up voluntarily. And we should be able to collect even more, because there are some that may pay more. There's some that cannot by their own means. But instead of making it compulsory and force it upon them, instead of sitting here for hours on end, should we pay $13? Maybe we should pay $26 and making those decisions for somebody else's pocketbook. Status quo, we can come back as a body and set up a mechanism if we'd like, whether it be committees or what have you, an ad hoc committee made up of all of the civic organizations of this town to go ahead and collect that money voluntarily. Bet you'll collect more.
Can I ask Commissioner Bruce a question?
Commissioner Baker had her button.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, I just had, I guess, 3 points to the why not lower the cap. One, it's fiscally irresponsible to continue to pay this rate study fee. If we're nickel and diming everything on the budget, why would we not nickel and dime that particular thing? It's $18,000. So my number 2 point is the homeowners association has fully supported this, and our committee has fully supported this by asking for us to not only raise the cap, but to raise the entire tax. So we have these 2 boards that are coming to us and saying, please raise it, and we're literally fighting them. We're fighting the residents that are actually asking for it. So I'm trying to meet in the middle here, but I think it's foolish.
So we agree, Commissioner Baker.
We have buttons,
We
we
agree.
have buttons. It's-
No, I disagree.
Deputy,
No, we
Deputy
agree
Mayor's
because
up next.
Bo-
We'll go in
bo-
order.
Both of the organizations that you just listed are voluntary. So I agree with you. Voluntary organizations have voluntarily suggested raising the amount. Instead of forcing people to do it, let's have the voluntary organizations go out, make their case,
That's a
and let.
governmental disagreement. I mean, I think, yes, we are on the same page there, but.
Okay.
Folks, let's go back to buttons and return to
So-
order. Deputy Mayor, you're up.
Couple things. One, Commissioner Bruce, direct question to you. You said, you want to set it there because you're afraid that we're just going to move to there the next year. And Commissioner Baker had offered an opportunity for us to bake it in for the next 3 to 4 years. We would have those increases until we meet the cap. Could we do both of those things where we keep it at the maximum capacity and then slowly work it up?
No, because didn't we just say that this is only about this year?
No.
We
What we're
can't-
doing now, we
can have a
could, we could make a plan. We can. So we can either make it just about this year, or we can set it a percentage or a dollar amount moving forward.
As a goal, yeah, we'd have to approve it every year.
And then the next year, the commission, could override that.
We could.
Can I
but-
just add my 2 cents? I'm
Please.
sorry. So all of this was started, like I said, when I walked in the door with the advisory committee. No one comes to the meeting. It's very disappointing to spend all the hours of time. That is between that assessment district and the Oak Forest Assessment District. They are 2 of the most transparent committees we have. We present line item details at every single meeting, and no one comes. And if we had had those discussions back then when I got here, I wouldn't have spent months of time. I'm sorry. I had some bad news happen today. So it's been a long day. It's been a long month. If we had that civic engagement up front, you guys wouldn't have to have this discussion right now because you would already know the answers. As a city staff, I have done nothing but do what the board asked for us to do, and no one else came. Everyone came to the meeting. I'm excited people are here. People don't like to listen to numbers. But no one came, and nobody gave us any guidance. We had the committee members. Sometimes it's hard to even get a quorum. We had to reschedule the most recent meeting. But this is the discussions that happens before it gets to this point, is at the advisory committee meetings. And like I said, I've been back for almost 18 months. I've struggled through getting audits done. I've struggled through getting budgets done. I've struggled without a city manager, and now I have one. And here we are, and it's 8 o'clock at night, and my son's getting ready to go to bed, and I've had bad family news today. I really want you guys to make a decision. And I really thank
Amen.
everybody for coming, and we still have another public hearing item to go.
2 more items. This is the first of 3.
Yes.
We're 3 hours in. We're still on the
But
first
this
item.
is the importance of coming to those committee meetings and being involved in that. And so,
Yeah.
sorry, that's my 2 cents, and it's probably not professional, but that's where I'm at.
Let's move on. Okay, so, next button, Commissioner Diaz.
I move that we keep the status quo.
Okay. And you made that. We asked for a second. It failed to get a second.
Well, right now, we haven't given the opportunity since we've had new information come up.
Okay. Well, okay. Is there a second? Lack of a second, the motion fails. I'd ask for another motion.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second to?
Raising taxes. This is shameful.
So,
This is quite
all right,
We
I'm
understand.
going to
We
try.
understand your view.
Ladies, I'm going to try something here. Let's see if I can get it right between all of us.
Thank you.
To raise the cap to the 255.20, to increase over the next, the 25% over the next 3 years as a maximum increase. Okay, doesn't mean we can have a minimum. So it would start this year at 25, 25, 25.
Step by step.
Step by step,
Okay, and
That
that's
accomplishes the two.
25% each year.
each year.
Okay.
If we are willing to do that. That would be my motion.
About 30, okay. There's a compromise.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion is made to raise the cap, so there isn't another study paid for.
Correct.
But only raise the cap, or
The dollar
raise the
amount.
actual fee 25% this year, with the
And
idea
each year.
that the next 2 years we do the same.
The maximum increase.
And there's a
25% year.
second. So made by the Deputy Mayor, Resnick, seconded by Commissioner Baker, Christian.
Commissioner Bruce,
No.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso,
No.
Commissioner Diaz.
Absolutely not.
Okay. So,
We've got to go lower on the cap. The 255.20 is not happening.
but
What's
we're
your highest
wasting
number on
money.
the
It can
cap
be
then?
some
Yeah,
number,
there you
but
go.
it's not that number.
What's your number? If we do that, then what would be your number, what would be your highest number that you'd be willing to go?
My number was 200, but it didn't get approved, so I would go as high as 220.
Okay, so I'll make that motion for 220 as a cap with 25% increase each year for the next 3 years till we reach it.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion is made by the Deputy Mayor to increase the cap to 225 and then do a 25% increase over the next 3 years as a guideline. It is seconded by Commissioner Bruce Christian.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso,
No.
Commissioner Diaz,
No.
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
That passes.
Okay, so just to clarify for the record and for myself,
Now,
essentially, the cap is going to be set at $220 per ERU. And the roll is going to be set at $160, which is 25% more than what the assessment is set at now,
with the intent of 25% each year.
with the intent of 25% each year.
Okay?
You need a motion to
So-
approve the resolution as
Correct.
amended.
I'm going to do that right now. Do you want
Thank
me,
you.
so do you need me to read all of that or just say make a motion to approve the resolution as amended?
Just
As-
say make a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as amended.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is made by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Commissioner Baker Christian.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Commissioner Caruso,
No.
Commissioner Diaz,
No.
Commissioner Bruce,
Aye.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
And the motion passes. All right, that moves us to the second item on the agenda tonight.
I'll make
This
a
item-
motion to approve. Oh, you need a public hearing, go ahead.
Yeah, item 4.1, increase in maximum annual Oak Forest maintenance assessment and approval of assessment rolls. And I guess, Ms. Queen, the clarification here is that we are not raising the fees, we are simply raising the cap.
Correct.
And any fee increase would still have to come before the commission.
Correct. So, would you like me to go through
No.
the whole spiel?
No.
Okay. So on the agenda is my spiel about the history of everything that was gone through. During the December 4th, 2024 special meeting of the Oak Forest Wall Beautification District Advisory Committee meeting, the committee directed staff to include the Oak Forest Maintenance Assessment District in the overall rate study project. Further discussion ensued during the May 21st committee meeting about the timeline of the study and how the committee would like to receive the information once it was complete. Can you pull up the financials? So I did the same financials. This committee did not have any specific projects. However, we did receive a new landscaping contract, as everyone is aware. A portion of that is for the additional enhanced portions around the wall, as well as, of course, our insurance money has increased slightly over the years. And so to keep up with those items, as well as the Duke Energy for the entrance features, the irrigation, all things of that nature, the same 5-year calculation was done, and NBS came up with a new cap of $84.03 per benefit unit to cover the city's future long-term maintenance costs. So the resolution and public hearing item in front of you tonight is essentially changing that cap, which again had not been increased since May of 2007, with Resolution 2007-23 that increased the maintenance maximum from $40.82 to $63 as it stands today. So right now, this resolution is to increase the cap from $63 to the $84.03 and set the rate to $60, which is unchanged from the prior year.
Public hearing?
Yeah.
Do I have any
Well, is there
questions
discussion?
from?
Any questions or discussion? We'll go right into public input. Okay, so on item 401 specifically, I have Doug. Excuse me? Can't read. Is that H-I-K-I-N-S? Hikins, maybe? Is he still here?
Doug, are you still here?
Is Doug still here? Oh. Or maybe it's Akins. Maybe that is an A. Maybe.
Atkins.
Cool. Got it. Okay.
My name is Doug Atkins. I am a resident of Oak Forest. I've been there since August of 1988. Matter of fact, I was part of the wall committee and city liaison with Oak Forest when we built the wall and worked with Ron McLemore and Dave McLeod and Michael Blake to help get that passed. I'm not here to necessarily say I oppose the cap increase and stuff. What I am here is to find out, or to at least state a little bit of a concern on transparency and why things are increasing the way they are increasing. The example being, I was only able to get a few different numbers and stuff, but over the last 6 years, from 2019 to 2024, the actual number spent was around $57,900 was the average throughout those years for 6 years. Then all of a sudden, the budget for 2025 jumped to $96,000. That was a 66% increase. You know, it's like, okay, we don't have fountains, we don't have lakes, we don't have anything. We have a wall. We have, I would call it grass, but it's more weeds that get watered. And we have the entrances with the annuals and things like that, which I was shocked when I saw that those were $3,000 every time they changed those out. I was like, wow, okay. But I'm not an expert in that field on cost, so maybe that's the cost possibly, but that's been going on. So I guess when I was looking at it, I was going, why do we have a 66% increase this year, and then the proposed budget next year over the trending 6 years that I quoted earlier is a 38% increase. So it went down a little bit, but these increases are huge, and I'm trying to figure out why. You know, we don't really have much landscaping. We have, as far as when trees die, they die and they get yanked, or they just die and they sit there for a while. So I guess it's more along the lines of the transparency of it. And when I was looking at it, it was the increases that came through were mainly from other services and contracts and R&M infra grounds. And there's these large numbers that have increased, but no real explanations as to why. So I was wanting to find out at some point, how do we as residents just see how that money is being spent, why the increases have happened? I know I'm running out. So that's kind of what I was talking about for the wall. When it comes to the ivy, you all did a good job of getting that ivy taken off the front of all the walls, but some of the back of those walls are terrible. And we're going to continue to have that mortar get eaten and cost us a ton more money down the road if we don't go get that stuff. And probably the most abusive one I see is on Winter Springs Boulevard, right at that where my hearing aids, I got something going off in my ear.
It's not you, it's somebody's phone.
But on the south side of Winter Springs Boulevard, you just see just tons of stuff coming up. And seeing as how the city owns that wall and it's on city property, because that's how everything was negotiated back in the day. Got it? I'd like to see someone go and get that off there. If the residents don't allow it, just come over the top and get that also. We don't have large expenses later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reasonable.
As you're going to your seat, do you want to be on the Oak Forest Board since you asked all those questions?
Yeah, there's an opening. Again, as a city
I'm
manager,
just offering.
staff is saying, folks, attend meetings,
That's okay.
volunteer to sit on the boards.
And that's four.
How many
Yeah.
more spots?
Learn the facts. Yeah, right. Okay, sorry, is there anyone, oh, I'm sorry, wait, I did have another one here. This was, Gary McCotter? Oh. Oops, sorry, yeah, I had one more and then we'll go, yeah.
Good evening, I'm Gary McCotter, I've been here 40-some years, so I'm an original owner and in Oak Forest. So my questions, and I wish you could answer. Who maintains the wall? Is that the city of Winter Springs? Or do they contract that work out? Either way, nothing's being done. The wall is a mess. I have pictures here if anybody wants to see them, covered with algae and mold at the entrances that everybody sees. Somewhere along the line, somebody had to brainstorm of putting some kind of mortar or, I don't know what it is, on the columns in between. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's the columns, then there's a stretch of the, so there's about an inch, a half inch to 3/4 of an inch gap on both sides of that. I suspect that that was permanently put in there for a reason, for expansion and contraction. And somebody has put mortar in between those. I thought maybe it was just people that had swimming pools so that people couldn't see through there, peek on them. So I guess my questions are all about the maintenance. Who does the maintenance? And what is the schedule of maintenance? And, I mean, where's the money going? Because it's not being done. I've talked to a lot of people on the wall, and nobody's seen anybody do anything on the wall for 5-6 years. So where's the money going? Where's that money going? Is that in a slush fund? And if you don't use it there, you use it somewhere else? No? Well, so where's the money going? If nobody's doing the work, what are we paying for? So I'm against the increase for the wall. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not $1.
Yeah. And again, there is no we're just raising the cap and not raising a dime of.
Does anybody want to see my pictures?
No, just turn them in and then just turn them in and they'll become public record. Madam.
I'm a woman, one of the people, and I still don't see any sufficient consideration. So there is no contract, no innovation. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to address specifically about Oak Forest? Seeing none, we'll close public input. If there's discussion or a question for the city attorney, or no? Sorry, Mr. Caruso, Commissioner.
Just for clarity, do we have to raise the cap to get this through?
Well, we spent a great deal of money doing the study and doing the
That's not the
mailing.
question, Mayor. Do we have to raise the cap to get this through right now, tonight?
We can vote anything down.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
The goal of the study, and I believe that the Assessment District Advisory Committee, was to not end up in the same situation as Tuscarora, to not essentially kick the can down the road and allow for deferred maintenance to then create this adjustment. We were trying to be proactive and do the study combined at the same time to allow for efficiencies, so you will. That was the thought. Yes, ma'am.
Holly, I mean, I know we're not going to go through everything, but has there been maintenance done every year at all for this oak forest? Or are we just kind of generating money to?
As far as I know, there has been maintenance. There is a portion of the landscaping contract that is specific to the entrance areas and certain areas within the oak forest assessment. I know in part of this, so when we removed the ivy, we never fully re-landscaped around the walls because there wasn't a large chunk of money, so you say, to do that at that time. I know removing that ivy was a very tedious process because they didn't want to mess up the masonry any further than they do. A big portion of, based on the conversations when I've been at the meetings, obviously I do the financial side, not the actual doing side, is that we don't have access to the backyards to be able to do the masonry from the inside of the backyards. So that is definitely something that I'll bring back to the team. Brian's here, he can hear that, come up with a plan to be able to do that, to make sure, I know when that ivy was removed, it potentially removed pieces of the masonry, and now you can probably see through parts of it. It also was starting to deteriorate the wall a lot faster, and so that's why the committee, I believe it was like 5 or 6 years ago, asked to have the ivy removed.
What additional expenses are required for this other than just the maintenance? I mean, it's like Tuscarora, TLBD, there's all these improvements to be done. It's not really like that with oak forest. This
Correct.
is just
They're-
to maintain
Correct.
significant.
Their budget is a lot smaller than Tuscarora. If you want to pull up that spreadsheet really quick again, so you can see I did the same thing, a 10-year history of the actual expenditures. And a portion of that is the utilities for the irrigation, as well as our sorry, it's really hard to see my tiny print. I know they did, hold on here. All right, so utilities, hold on, it helps if I flip the page. There is monthly landscape maintenance with Nature's Care for portions in Oak Forest. There's Duke Power for the main entrance features, as well as irrigation for those main entrance features. There's annual mulching, there's plant rotation, there's money in there for irrigation repairs. We're also adding back in money for re-landscaping after the ivy being removed. That was the $10,000 increase that you saw from year to year. And then we have buffers in there for if we have to have any kind of lighting or electrical repairs, and then for the insurance deductible, because this does have such a small fund balance in it. It's usually only around $50,000 if something catastrophic happened to the wall, to cover the insurance deductible.
Other questions?
If we are to make a motion, do you want me to read the whole motion or just say approve item 401 as presented?
You can say approve item 401 as presented.
I would make a motion to approve item 401 as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion's made by Deputy Mayor Resnick and seconded by Commissioner Bruce. Christian?
Commissioner Caruso.
No.
Commissioner Diaz.
No.
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
And the motion passes. That then brings us to the regular agenda item 500, Tuscarora Phase 3, Hawks Reserve, approval of a non-ad valorem assessment roll.
All right, so this is the assessment roll with no changes for the capital or the maintenance. The City Commission established the Tuscarora Phase 3 Hawks Reserve Assessment Program on August 12, 2013 to provide special benefits to property owners living within the boundaries of the assessment district. The City Commission is required to annually certify the assessment rolls and amounts for each assessment district during the annual budget process. Prior to September 15th, the final assessment rolls and documents must be authorized and submitted to the Seminole County Tax Collector for tax year 2025, fiscal year 2025-2026. The adoption of the annual resolution is required under the city's ordinance number 98-704. The rates for this assessment district remain unchanged from prior year. Any questions?
Question, so
Yes.
we're not changing it, but the reason we have to go through this approval is just to maintain it?
Correct.
And
So,
not decrease it, and not, or not?
correct. So this assessment district is very complex.
Okay.
To say lightly. We have been, we did meet with a couple of residents for this. This assessment district is very small. I
Yeah.
want to say it's around 78 houses or so. There was a lot of discussion back in, I believe it took about 2 years, about the wall. They have a very large wall around their small area. And at one point, they were looking at options of let's demolish the wall, let's structurally, support the wall. And so the community decided that they wanted to basically revamp it. They cut the corners off, they made them flat, they created an actual face for their monuments. And the city actually gave them an internal loan to finance this. So the capital portion that's set at $88 is indebtedness to the city. It still has 10 years to go. They still owe around $30,000 for that capital assessment. The maintenance assessment is the biggest
Portion?
well, no, the maintenance assessment is $87 versus a capital assessment of $88. The maintenance assessment is the more tedious item, as you will. So there's not much, there's no landscaping other than the entrance features that the city maintains in there. And as, several people spoke, there hasn't really been a whole lot done because when this maintenance assessment was established, there wasn't a whole lot of detail provided for that. And again, because it is such a small area, it's very sensitive to the taxpayers that live there. So what we're going through right now is trying to, assess the wall and figure out strategically what needs to be done to the wall, and prioritize those repairs. This assessment brings in a little over $7,000 a year for maintenance, which is not a whole lot to work with. And so the plants that they have in the front are very Florida landscape friendly to try to get them to live longer. The last time they've been replaced was in 2020 when I started digging back through the records, so it has been quite some time. There was also some clarification on what the city was responsible for and what the assessment district was responsible for. So there was some mowing that was being done when a contract got changed back in, I want to say, around 2019, 2020. And so the city is in the process of giving those dollars back to the assessment district. That is our right-of-way to mow. So that money is going back to the assessment district. And the goal would be with that money to prioritize the repairs to the wall, because that is the most sensitive in nature.
All right. So to the point that Ms. Queen was making, so that wall was a lot of fighting up here, right? There was also a lot of controversy as to what the purpose of that wall was. And like you said, some of the conversation was to destroy the wall. Some of the conversation was who's paying for the wall. But go back to those conversations, and the only conversation was the wall. So if you look at the old records, the old tapes and things, because I think in those days we were using tapes still. And I only say that because I sat next to the lady who would change the tape at a point in each meeting. But these were long meetings. So you're right in that question, and I was sitting here when this all went down with the wall, and the big thing there was, and also some people have prepaid that loan, some people are still paying on the loan.
Mm-hmm.
So there were different things that were put in place, and even once the commission said, okay, this community is going to take care of the wall, and Mr. Attorney, then you kind of took over from there. There are different rates as the wall affects you in that community. So not
Correct.
everybody's paying the same amount of money. As we sit here now, my one thing for this, and I want to make sure I'm very public and open about it, is I was here when we set this wall in place, but it was to repair and maintain. And City Manager, it's not really been maintained. So you've kind of taken this on. I don't think much work other than the original work was done. So I don't know what money's there to do it, what money's not there to do it. I know this is not a preferred statement, but the wall should be the priority, not the landscape.
Correct.
From as far as I'm concerned from this dais. So as we kind of look at this, I know there's no dollar increase amount, but my request over the next year before we come back to this is that we get that wall in good working order.
Yeah, as Holly stated, we're actively working on quoting and assessing that and really to understand so we can prioritize those repairs. As Holly said, I mean, we kind of inherited this, and as we, particularly looking at diving back into seeing where some of the money had been utilized, the city recognized that there was a use from prior administration of those funds for the maintenance, as she stated, within the right-of-way stuff that, and this is in the process now of going back into that fund, but it's not, masonry is extremely expensive.
Yep.
And there's, the fund doesn't generate a lot, but we're looking at what that's gonna cost and really trying to understand the impacts of that. But I would agree with you, which is, and we're well aware of that there just hasn't been the maintenance that is needed, and we're trying to address that.
Thank you.
I think that's also an important note that really is a very critical part, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no HOA, so there's no one for the
There's no
city to
board
go
either.
to actually be that key person. And the people who do get involved are people who are against any expenditure of any kind. So we get, wait, whoa, stop, guys, stop.
Objection, out of order.
Stop. I apologize. Look, I'll take that back. But I agree. I'll take that back. But my understanding is, being involved in these conversations are people who don't want that. And I can say that, that's clear. Shh, sir. Those people that I've had conversations with are against the fees. So maybe I'm wrong. That's just anecdotal me. But there is no specific organization, elected group of people that the city can go to and help to resolve this issue. That's it.
It's up to us.
Can I just,
Yeah,
so
please.
it is our intention now with, Mr. Sweet on board and really trying to dig in to create, a community open discussion. There does need to be a formal rate study done to figure out, maybe it's not as detailed, but to be able to increase the cap, we have to go through the same noticing requirements. But we do need to open that community dialogue since there is no advisory committee. And unfortunately, we just didn't have time to do that. It's taken a lot of effort to get it to this point. But we do want the community to know that that is the plan, to have community workshops to really get an understanding of what those residents are looking for, because we don't have any other kind of communication with them since there is no advisory committee. I do know that when I was looking through some documents, I just happened upon a statement in one of them that said there was a thought about having certain individuals that are on the TLBD board that reside within the Hawks Reserve to be on that committee as well, and they could assume that advisory role. I don't know if that would be the will of the commission or not, but our thought is to keep it the same as is, to be able to service the debt, to be able to service and figure out a plan, a strategy for the wall maintenance, and then to move forward.
Point of privilege.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I know it's a regular agenda item, but I'd really like to be able to, since we're being asked to make a decision on this, on this wall and everything else, if we could hear from some of the residents that are here from that neighborhood to kind of get their perspective. We've obviously heard mumbling from the audience, but if the body would be okay with it, we could just hear from those residents.
For what? This is just approving the exact what goes on this is not an increase or anything like that?
It's okay,
And
but obviously we're having the discussion.
There is no real, we're not increasing or changing anything, we're just pushing it through in the budget. The other thing is that everybody has, in fact, and anybody here had multiple opportunities, and a couple of them that are here, look, we can do that if that's what the body wants, but they did already get up and speak. We've already had their input, but that.
There were a lot of statements that are being
But that's okay.
So-
I'm not opposed to it. I'm not,
Just-
very
just
clearly, I'm
hearing
not
him out.
opposed, I'm not opposed to just looking for guidance.
I just want to hear the
The
residents
last
out.
thing of the night, they're here, there's 3 of them, I think.
Any,
I don't have a problem with it.
I
no
don't have a
problem?
problem with it.
Sounds good.
I'd
Who would
see
like
what
to
they
go
have
first?
say.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it, I just want clarification. No.
Thank you. I was part of the original committee that the city put together to come up with some solutions on the wall. The wall, one thing you probably don't know, some of the wall is on city property. The wall behind my house is partly on the city property and partly on my property. Our neighbor's wall is all on the city's property. So they did a study, this what brought it all up. They did a study, an engineering firm came back and said, well, this doesn't meet current standards. It should be demolished. The city paid for that study. That got rolled into the capital cost because we said, no, we don't want it demolished. You can use a prescriptive code, and it would meet the study because it passed several things. So that started that. Anyway, the original capital improvements were done fine, perfectly. The assessment lists what the funds are used for. Landscaping, utility water usage, and maintenance. They are to maintain the wall. It's not specifically called out, but there's a balance of what the rest of the tax dollars every year collected are go to. That was going to be for maintenance. And that was going to not be done every year. But as needed, they would pile up the money. This is what the head of the city manager, whoever at the time,
Kevin Smith, yeah.
save the money, they'd have it in the account so when repairs are needed. Well, there was never any maintenance done. The landscaping, we call and complain, they just removed the dead plants. The water's not on. So all this time, over the time I put the numbers together, there's over $54,000 that have been collected for landscaping, for water, and for wall maintenance. That's not in counting all the administration costs, which are $47,000 or $32,000. So I'd like to see, there's no annual report we get, there's no notice that anybody's going to be working on the wall. We don't even know where the money's going. We ask and no one can tell us. This is the most important thing I've heard last night, that we figured, somebody said, well, it's going to cutting. There's no cutting to, so anyway, the wall is in need of repair. We don't need any more surveys. We've had all kinds of surveys. We don't need to waste the money on that. It's tuck pointing and a few bit of masonry repairs. And I'd be happy to work with anybody on it. I'm a general contractor, retired. I worked director of construction for a large developer for 42 years. So, John Sunman, thank you.
Thank you for your measured and reasonable comments. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Appreciate the work that you put into this.
Ken Greenberg, Winter Springs Community Association. Number one, I was on the committee. In fact, that's what got me involved in, the city, antics and politics or what have you. And this was actually before I was the chair of the TLBD. And actually, I served as vice chair, because as an honor, I said, Gary Brook, take the chair, but, and he's now gone, rest in peace. A lot of what Holly said is not correct factually. I was actually there, as was John. First, the wall's about 3,000 feet. All but the entries, with very, very rare exception, are on city property. And the little bit that at the entry, they got full easements, much like, Tuscarora Homeowners Association got. There's been no maintenance whatsoever done on that wall. There's been no landscaping in the last 6, 7, 8 years. You used to run the water Tuesday morning for a little while, reclaimed water, because it's right on the boulevard there. But they haven't replaced the plant. They haven't done a darn thing. I was involved, as the, TLBD. I had it where the guys were cutting the grass. That was part of the contract. And why someone went away from that, I have no idea. And then the city started taking it over because I sat with them. I watched because the weeds would get over my knees and I would call and nobody did anything. So I would call code enforcement. They came out and, of course, then they said, well, it's the city. I said, well, good, enforce it. and they started cutting it, and then the city parks department has been cutting it ever since. That said, I've heard Brian inadvertently said that the wall is built on sand with no footers. We found out that to be not true, because when they did the new walls at the entry, 6 of the 8 walls, they were on footers. That's how we got names. We only authorized, as a committee, the maintenance of that wall, tuck pointing, fixing it, bricks that are loose and stuff like that, none of which has been done, with one exception once, because one of the columns was falling over at the very end. I got a hold of then Kevin Smith, and within a few days, you know, that thing was fixed, no problem. By the way, every entry, because I'm on Wood Duck, those entries are city property, not unlike the median or anything else. So the city is supposed to be maintaining those, or TLBD. I don't care which one, but either way, that's not our property. I have 150 feet on the boulevard of wall. Not one piece of that is on my property. I said, Grant, give me the property, much like you gave the THOA, you know, all that fountain land back in 2001, by the way. I sent you the agreement. And I said, give it to me. I'll throw it on my insurance plan. And this way, if there's some damage or anything need to be done, I'll take care of it. So he said, no, that's too difficult. We'd have to do that for too many people. Well, do it. You don't want to maintain it, deed it back to me. I'll take care of my wall. But, you know, the bottom line is nobody's done a darn thing. We've taken in, what, $85,000? I had former Commissioner Benton sit there and say, I'm appalled, $36,000, that fund is overdrawn. That fund is only overdrawn because you're charging for mowing your property, not our property, your property, city property, or yes, it's mine too, in effect. But, you know, bottom line is, appreciate you not raising it. I know there's conversation saying, well, it's going to be expensive to fix it. It ain't $85,000 to fix it, that's for darn sure. It just needs some tuck pointing, it needs some bricks. It hasn't seen a pressure clean, Jesus, I don't know how long, probably never. I think once they may have done it 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So the bottom line is either decrease the cost, you know, because I don't know if it's going to cost you $85,000 or whatever you owe us back, you know, to tuck point this thing. But let's stop the silliness. I've offered to walk. John's contractor, he and I could walk together. My wife is sitting there with pictures of the wall that we're very happy to share with you. I'm happy to walk with you along with John if he wishes. You know, and let's walk it. Let's get it fixed. Let's get it done. Otherwise, I mean, there was a threat. I remember when Commissioner Brown says, well, we'll take the whole wall down. Take it down. I'll put up a pink frickin' fence, I promise you. Hot pink, and then see what happens. But the bottom line is the properties are all backing up to the thing. So it's not like, you know, Miss Baker's property where her front is facing the boulevard. You'll see a lot of backyards. And in my case, you'll see a wood fence with pink, hot pink, in honor of my Miami. So, you know, let's stop the silliness. Let's get this fixed. Let's get together next week, the week after. You know, it's silly. It is crumbling. It's crumbling because no one's done a damn thing. So let's do something. Let's fix it. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Or anyone else that would like to comment? If there's no other public input, I'd ask for a discussion or a motion.
I'll make a
Deputy
motion.
Mayor.
I'll make a motion to approve item 500 as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion's made by Deputy Mayor Resnick and seconded by Commissioner Bruce. Christian?
Commissioner Diaz.
No.
Commissioner Bruce.
Aye.
Commissioner Baker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Aye.
Commissioner Crusoe.
Aye.
And the motion passes. All right, that then
We done?
brings us to a final formal public input. Anyone that would like to address the commission on any topic?
Everyone.
Seeing
Everyone.
none, we'll close public input and we
Everyone.
are adjourned.
Everyone.